Why does Mexico owe water? To how can both sides fix the problem together? This edition of The Inquiry was presented by me, Gary O'Donoghue. The producer was Jill Collins, researcher Maeve Schaffer, technical producer Craig Boardman, and the editor, Tom Bigwood.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being with us on Information Radio. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. I appreciate having you along with us. Our morning show is on until 8:37 AM, and if you need us on the morning drive or commute, it's 788-3093. Weather today, wow, we're like on the first day of October and feeling like the middle of summer. A high of 27 degrees with humidex of 30 in Winnipeg today with a mix of sun and cloud. Thompson's going to be sunny and a 24-degree high. And in Brandon today, mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance of showers, but still warm. Your high is 28. Corey Funk is back off the road as well. Corey and I were in OCN yesterday, Opaskwayak Cree Nation, for Truth and Reconciliation Day. And Corey and I are both back in the show. So Corey's directing. We'll hear him covering the commute. Hi, Corey. Abby Adiyemi holding it down behind the controls, as always. Strong and steady. Abby is our senior tech on the show, and we'll be covering weather on the air. And there's Darren Marash and Brad Lillies behind the controls of our YouTube this morning. If you're watching there, say hello. All right, Heather Wells is here also, speaking of strong and steady, and she's got your day's news headlines. Good morning to you, Heather.
Good morning. Well, a family wants changes to the criminal code after learning a man convicted of murder has been granted escorted temporary absences from prison. Skylar Van Weesen was convicted of first-degree murder in the 2011 death of Gina Swanson. He is serving a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. But this summer, the Parole Board of Canada granted him 3 brief escorted absences from prison. So we'll hear more from the family coming up. And downtown Winnipeg was a sea of orange yesterday as thousands took part in the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We're going to bring you some of the sounds of that event coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
In the program this morning in the first hour, do you know someone who is sick right now? I'm guessing the answer is probably yes. We're going to be talking about the season. We're also going to be talking about vaccines, how well they match the current strains of cold, flu, RSV, and COVID. So that's coming up in the show. Also in the first hour of the program, you might have heard on World Report, if you were up earlier at 5, that there's an international aid convoy that is approaching Gaza right now. It actually could arrive as early as today. So we're going to hear about the latest plan to get aid into the region and to end the war in Gaza. So stay tuned for that. And then we're going to visit a school later in Winnipeg's West End to see how the Universal Nutrition Program is helping students and families this fall.
Today on Q.
Have you ever heard of the Ultimate Fighting Championship?
Benny Safdie is stepping into new territory with his latest film, The Smashing Machine. It's his first time directing without his brother. Benny will be here to talk to you about going solo, working with a wrestling icon, and why there's more to MMA than just aggression.
Do you hate each other when you fight?
Absolutely not.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. A stalemate at the U.S. Senate has forced a government shutdown. Congress failed to reach a deal on a Republican spending bill by the midnight deadline. Several services have now been cut off, and hundreds of thousands of federal workers are now on unpaid leave. As U.S. President Donald Trump says the jobs of thousands more could be gone permanently. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. So, Willie, how is this going to affect people across the United States?
Well, in a myriad of ways. While essential services like law enforcement, hospital care, and air traffic control will continue, many of the people who work in these fields will be expected to work without pay. That's the same for the military. Active duty troops are expected to report for duty as normal, but they may eventually be forced to work without pay as well. Agencies are expected to furlough tens of thousands of people. Now, Social Security benefits and Medicaid will continue, but if employees there are furloughed, services may be delayed. Essentially, everything slows down. TSA may be operating at a reduced capacity, meaning longer lines. Border services will remain open, but most national parks are expected to close.
Okay, so with all that being said, as we're watching that, what can we expect next?
Well, there's another vote to continue funding the government expected today, but as of now, the numbers haven't changed. Yesterday, the Senate voted 55-45 in favor of the government's funding resolution, but that's still 5 votes short of the required 60 to pass it. The Democrats' proposal also failed 47-53. That would have included a funding continuation and an additional $1 trillion to healthcare spending. Now, Democrats are calling on Republicans to negotiate.
There's going to be a crescendo as through the beginning of October, the vast majority of Americans get those bills, and they're going to say, what the heck are we going to do? We need health care, but we can't afford it. So we want to sit down and negotiate, but the Republicans can't do it in their partisan way.
That was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has suggested that the shutdown may also lead to mass layoffs of government employees. Trump saying some jobs could be gone permanently.
The CBC's Willie Lowry for us in Washington. Thanks a lot for this, Willie.
My pleasure.
Well, within the next month and a half, Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to announce the next round of major nation-building projects. His government is supporting the fast-tracking of 5 projects so far. None are in the north. But as David Common reports, Nunavut has some options it wants Ottawa to consider.
The Canadian Air Force surveillance plane passes over the snow-capped mountain expanse of western Nunavut. Beneath the untapped terrain below lie the critical and rare earth minerals the world now craves. Getting it out of the ground and on to global customers is the challenge.
No, we've really seen the love of interest to the Arctic.
Nunavut's outgoing Premier PJ Akiagok is eager to see talk of developing land and port infrastructure. It is the investment kickstarter he believes the region with the highest employment in the country urgently needs.
We know there's incredible abundance of halibut or shrimp, that we could really build our own economies using our own resources right in our backyard, but it requires investments in infrastructure.
Some of that is about power. Nunavut's electricity comes from diesel generators. Its internet, unlike most Canadians, comes by satellite. New generating models and internet fiber would be a game changer. Akiagok wants to make sure the North isn't an afterthought as the nation turns to building to spur its own economy. David Common, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Well, it appears Alberta Premier Danielle Smith may have a nation-building project of her own to pitch to Ottawa. We're expecting those details later on today. Smith is going to announce a new energy infrastructure project of some kind. For weeks now, she's been advocating for a new pipeline that would bring Alberta bitumen to British Columbia. And the Alberta Premier has been hinting a corporate proposal could be coming soon. An overwhelmed hospital in the Philippines treats patients in its driveway. The fear of possible aftershocks after yesterday's earthquake is real, and many people say they're just too scared to go back inside. At least 69 people are dead after a powerful 6.9 magnitude quake struck Tuesday night. The epicenter measured off the coast of the central Cebu province. As the search for survivors continues, so do efforts to restore power and water supplies that were badly damaged. The military has now been sent in to help. The United Nations says more than 250,000 people have been displaced from Gaza City in the last month, forced to leave as the Israeli military pushes ahead with its ground offensive. Soon Israel says it will close the last remaining road out of the city, and its troops will move farther north to root out the last remaining Hamas militants. Now, the plan for peace in Gaza still on hold as Hamas reviews the details. Sasha Petrusik has more.
After almost 2 years of war, the promise of peace is dangling over Gaza. But among the displaced Palestinians in Deir al-Balah, there's doubt. Jamil al-Aidi doesn't think the deal would give them control over their lives.
Palestinian people need to end the occupation in all land. We need to live like other people in the world. We need to live in peace and justice.
UNICEF's James Elder was in Gaza yesterday at a hospital treating injuries from Israel's ongoing ground assault in Gaza City.
I met 4 children who'd all been shot. I then saw a boy who had been shot lying on the floor, bleeding out. Every single corridor was packed with people.
There are many vague details in U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan. Will Israel's military control end once the war does? Will the proposed international administration bring power to Palestinians or just a new colonial government? Could there ever be a Palestinian state? But the big question is, will Hamas accept this deal? It said no to similar offers already. Trump says now it's take it or leave it.
Is there room to negotiate with Hamas, or is this a
not much?
Deal?
You know, with Hamas, we want very simple. We want the hostages back immediately, and we want some good behavior.
Arab leaders are reportedly putting great pressure on Hamas to take this offer, expecting an answer as early as today. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Ukraine's president says the situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant is critical. Volodymyr Zelensky says the plant has become a threat to absolutely everyone after being disconnected from the power grid for 7 days. He blames ongoing Russian strikes for stopping repair efforts. One of the plant's diesel generators has already failed, and it needs power to ensure the fuel in the reactors stays cool. This is the longest power outage at the plant since Russia seized it during the first weeks of its full-scale invasion back in 2022. Back here at home, a Quebec man is set to appear in court today on a murder charge in connection with a cold case. It was August 2011 when the body of college student Valérie Leblanc was found behind her campus in western Quebec. As Nicole Williams tells us, investigators say new techniques help them track down a suspect. And a warning to some listeners, they may find the details of this case disturbing.
It is with great emotion that we announce this news today, says Gatineau Police Service Director Simon Fournier. An arrest in connection to the death of 18-year-old Valérie Leblanc. Leblanc was a student who had gone missing after her first day of school in Hull, Quebec, back in 2011. Her body found days later in the woods behind the school, badly beaten and burned.
She was in bad shape. I never saw someone in that shape.
That's Dominic Arsenault after he and a group of students discovered Leblanc's body in the woods, her death devastating her family and community. A coroner's report found Leblanc died from blunt force trauma to the head. Police have now arrested 51-year-old Stéphane Rivard of Gatineau. He faces 1 count of first-degree murder. Police are not sharing any more details about the suspect or any possible connection he may have to Leblanc. Mathieu Guilbeault is chief inspector.
This is still an ongoing investigation, and that kind of information will stay close to the investigator in this file.
Rivard remains in custody and is scheduled to appear in court today. Police say they hope this brings Leblanc's family peace of mind. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Well, hey there, Manitoba. What's going on with the weather? Who's going to complain, right? October 1st, it sure has been warm. Today, once again, we're going to be a high of 27 degrees here in Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Right now in the city of Winnipeg, it is mainly clear and it's 19 degrees already. And we're only at 6:10 a.m. This hour on the program, despite what the temperature says, it is fall, and you know what that means. A lot of people get sick. A lot of people are indoors, school's in. So how well do the current vaccines match what strains might be going around out there of things like the cold, flu, RSV, and COVID? We're going to hear more about that this hour on the show. We always follow, right, Australia's lead because of the way that viruses work, and so we're going to see what their vaccine is doing there and how well it could match here. In addition, this hour, we are going to take you to the Middle East. We're going to hear more of the impressions of the latest plan to end the war in Gaza. You might have just heard about some of that on World Report, so we'll have a full interview on it. Right now, we do go to Heather Wells, for more Manitoba news. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, the campaign manager for the Manitoba PC's 2023 election campaign was named in an early memo about a rail park project that received an $18 million provincial grant right before the campaign started. We're going to hear the latest on this story coming up. And some Manitobans are getting a pay increase today. Minimum wage in this province goes up to $16 an hour today. It had been $15.80. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we want to open the phone lines on that because obviously when this happens, it affects a lot of people. So whether you're a worker making minimum wage or whether you're an employer paying minimum wage, how is this affecting you in our province? So whatever city you're in and community you're in, please give us a call. We'll open the listener line. We'll try to turn those calls on the air. And sometimes we end up interviewing folks, of course, because if you leave us a story that we think we have more questions about and you're sharing, we'd love to know your experience with minimum wage as it goes up today. So 788-3205, 788-3205 is where you can reach us here at Information Radio on our listener line. Let's get to what's happening in our weather forecast today. It is just incredibly warm. We are grateful to be back down south. We were in OCN yesterday, Abby, and tell you what, Abby Adiyemi, we got off the plane and it was like a hairdryer, and it was sort of, you have to reset yourself and say it is the last day of September, right?
But still warm.
Wow. Incredible.
And that's going to continue into today. Yesterday, some parts of the city, because I was driving around yesterday and I noticed the temperature in the car was reading about 30 degrees. So our high for yesterday was supposed to be around 28. But I was driving around and it pushed it to about 30 while I was on the road. And today, we will see similar condition. It's going to be another sunny Wednesday, a few clouds and maybe showers in some areas. Also, that humidity and a breeze will be felt across the province. Right here in Winnipeg, partly cloudy at this time, 19 degrees we're sporting. It's going to be a mix of sun and clouds through the day with a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms sometime in the morning into the afternoon period. We'll feel the southerly winds peak by the midday time, and we'll bring a high to a humid high near 27, close to 28 for today, and then some clear skies tonight. Across the south from Brandon all the way down to Gimli, including Dauphin, we're seeing a mild start also. Temperatures in the mid-teens, we're looking at 16 to 18 degrees there. Most of the regions will see mix of sun and clouds today with isolated showers and even some thunderstorms late in the day. Temperatures also close to 30 in Brandon for today. Other regions would get to 25, 26. Further north, we're seeing already temperatures between 11 and 18 from the Par all the way down to Churchill, and temperatures will get close to 25. So all in all, it's a warm and breezy day across the province today with sunshine leading the way and only a few scattered showers or storms to watch out for. But right now, Winnipeg, it's 19 and partly cloudy outside.
Now, before we actually move on to traffic, I have to say, Abby, and Corey, you'll weigh in on this. Every once in a while, I think we have to show the strings of what happens on this program, and it is for the sake of thanking our colleagues. Mm-hmm. So yesterday, if you heard Corey and I, there's Corey back in our studio this morning now. Hi, Corey. Corey and I were up in Opaskwayak at Cree Nation, so we were there for Truth and Reconciliation Day, and we were broadcasting, and we had this great big plan to broadcast from a teepee outside Veterans Hall, which did end up working out. It was a beautiful show, and thank you to all the guests that came in the community. However, huge thanks to our colleagues, because Abby, as you know, we called in a frantic panic going, oh, it's really dark up here at 10 to 5 in the morning in a teepee.
I was going to ask, how did you guys set up?
Right?
How did you set up in the dark?
Yeah, in our wisdom, we did not bring a light. So we were running around going, we managed everything. We had this cable strung all the way across this parking lot. How long was the cable? Like 3-4 cables?
I used 4 extension cords.
Yeah. Ooh. So we were already pushing it with getting this done. And yeah, I don't know how you set up in the dark, Corey. Abby was wondering.
Lots of squinting and lots of cell phone light.
Yeah, which was very poor. Yeah. And then we had this beautiful elder that showed up with his daughter for this story at 6:15, and I thought, where are we going to do the show? In the end, it all happened. So this is my thank you to our team. So this is like Darren Marash and Brad Lillies and Abby here, Adiyemi, who we were talking to, of course, back here, but also to Travis Golby, who was on the road with us. And I mean, man, that guy worked all night. He was processing video up north and capturing all the stories, and then all of a sudden it was like, can you get up? We're sorry. We know you slept an hour, but we need a light.
Corey, you should add to your skills now. You can set up in the dark.
I'm gonna go. I'm a lighting expert.
Put it on your resume. All right, let's actually ask Corey about what he's here for, which is traffic.
Yes, and so far actually haven't heard of any major issues out there on the roads. But if you do see something going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
6:16 on your Wednesday morning, October 1st. Thanks for being with us here on CBC's Morning Show. Well, before we move on from yesterday, let's just sort of reflect on the day that was. All over the province, as you were hearing in the news, people were gathering for Truth and Reconciliation Day. It was a special orange shirt day because it was the first orange shirt day without Murray Sinclair, who gave us the calls to action. He and the commissioners of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, 94 calls to action. He read them out 10 years ago, so it was a significant anniversary a decade later. We learned yesterday only 13 of those calls have been fully completed. So all over the province, we were hearing, people's realities in 2025. But where we were, Corey, was very special to be there in OCN. I'm just curious what your reflections were and what you're bringing home in terms of the people in the place.
You get a sense when you talk to everyone from, not just elders, but right down to the young people. I spent a whole morning in the school and, there was things that just didn't go to air. I spoke to some kids who couldn't even put a sentence together as soon as you start talking about residential schools because they know, because it's just something that they know hurts so deeply to their family, and it's worked its way through the generations. So that's something that really stuck with me. That it's something we might think about as something that the elders feel the most, but when you're there and you're talking to people, you get a sense of just how much that pain and that hurt has echoed throughout the generations, even till today, to the young people. But the cool thing is about the inspiring thing is maybe more so is that the young people are actually exposed to it earlier than their people who are in the in between era.
They're taught the truth,
right? Exactly. Like yesterday when we heard the mom who said that she didn't learn about residential schools until she was 26, even though her mom went to one, but now her son. Who's 11 years old, knew that he is learning about that as early as 8 or 9.
So what will that impact be? I mean, I think a lot of us reflect, who are here in this country, and those of us like myself who came from that generation also that wasn't taught. What will the impact be of a generation that knows this for their whole lives? What will they do? How will they change, the world and Canada for the better? So inspiring is the right word, I think, for sure. It was quite a place, Opaskwayak Cree Nation. I also found that we're sort of, having done this work for some time and even going back to covering even the original testimonies here at the Forks, I have to say that it was interesting to me to see the evolution in terms of what people are now able to share. So this is a personal thing. These are families' lives and stories here. This is not just about history and education and in terms of in a book, right? These are the people we live with. We're all Manitoba. So I find it interesting in OCN how many people were willing to be open, as Stephanie was with us on the air. That's the mom you're talking about that was on After 8.
And what it took for her to get to that point of being open about it.
But people being open about even the forgiveness that they found within themselves once they understood. It's all about understanding what was going on within their own personal families, and then also that how that grows and gets redirected into now seeking that real justice for what happened. I also loved this little moment on the air yesterday. So Felicia Adam, our CBC reporter, thank you, Corey. Corey's busy. He's going back to the control room. But Felicia Adam, our CBC Manitoba reporter that was there for television, she had visited the McKay Residential School site, the former site of that school. And when she was there, she was talking to Janet Head. And there was so much of that dark history being revisited. But then there was this beautiful moment in the piece where Janet smiled and she was talking about the kids. 7 busloads of kids coming here, and she said they all had the best questions. So just a shout out to Opaskwayak Cree Nation for being so welcoming and so open with stories. We had a beautiful day there. And in case you missed any of the coverage on CBC, coast to coast to coast, you can check out our websites at cbc.ca, but also cbc.ca/Manitoba for local coverage. Now, we want to leave you just with something lovely, which is music. So Manitoba artists Nadia and Jason Burnstick weren't in Manitoba yesterday, but they were part of the celebrations on Parliament Hill for Truth and Reconciliation Day. They are a Juno-nominated husband and wife duo. They've been on our program a number of times, and they performed this to the crowds that were gathered. This is Burnstick and Made of Sin.
Tous les soirs, je rêve de toi. Quand serai-je chez moi? Les années s'enfuient, mais le mal ne s'effacera. Et l'amour, je n'oublierai pas. Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe I'm born with a curse, or maybe I'm less than a sideways glance. So I must be made of sin. Oh, I must be made of sin. And as a child I dreamt through each night, your arms too far to embrace. May the light from your eyes never fade away. I am aching, I need you now. Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe we're born with a curse, or maybe we're less than a sideways glance. So we must be made of sin. Oh, we must be made of sin. As a child I dreamt through each night, these walls around me would break, and the hands that loved me would find me somehow. I am aching, I need you now. Like a thief in the night, they come and take our love. Maybe they're born with a curse, or maybe they're less than a sideways glance. So they must be made of sin. Oh, they must be made of sin. Oh, they must be made of sin.
What a beautiful live performance. Manitoba artists, Nadia and Jason Burnstick, they were live on Parliament Hill yesterday. They were a part of the performances for the gathered crowds there, but also people could watch all those performances on CBC News Net for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Today's the day to sit back, and if you miss some of those things, go online, check out the streams, enjoy the music, but also enjoy all of the pictures of the sea of orange that envelop the country. It is now 6:24 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. It's 19 degrees in Winnipeg. Today's high is going to be 27 with humidex 30. And we do have a chance of a thunderstorm, risk of a thunderstorm this afternoon in Winnipeg. So we'll see whether or not that develops for us here. Well, next on the show, with flu season right around the corner, provincial and territorial governments are starting to roll out their annual vaccination campaign. CBC Manitoba reporting that the COVID shot here will be offered for free again in our province. As you're going to hear in a moment, that's not the case everywhere. They are also encouraging Canadians across the country to get COVID-19 booster shots. To look at all things vaccine this morning, in place of Dr. Bardwaj for a bit of a medical column, we have Dawn Bowdish with us. She's an immunologist and professor of medicine at McMaster University, and I, in fact, spoke with her yesterday.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. So important.
Thanks for being here. So what are we expecting for the season this year?
Well, as you know, these viruses like to trick us and fool us, but we often look at Australia to give us a bit of a preview of what might happen because their cold and flu season is just winding down, just as ours is beginning. And so based on the data that they have published, it looks like they had a significant amount of influenza. It was quite a bad flu year, as well as a lot of COVID and a considerable amount of RSV in both the very young and very old. So although, again, things could change, it looks like we're starting to see an uptick in the number of COVID infections. So it could be the start of a wave now. We're not really seeing an uptake of influenza and RSV, which is perfectly normal because generally the peak for those happens sort of later, a little bit closer to January. So as for the timing, things look relatively normal. And as for the magnitude, well, we're going to have to wait and see.
We always ask this question. I know it's hard to answer, but how effectively might this season's vaccines target some of the popular variants?
Well, the good news is the first assessment of the vaccines that were in the Southern Hemisphere for the Southern Hemisphere, this cold and flu season has just come out and it's looking pretty good. There were 3 influenza strains circulating in the Southern Hemisphere, and the vaccine included all 3 and looked like it provided a really good level of protection. So that's good news, as long as we have no mutations or changes before it gets to the Northern Hemisphere. For COVID, what we're getting is a vaccine that's made against a variant called LP. And although the variants that are circulating in Canada now are not the exact match to that, they're in the same basic family. And the first data sets have come out suggesting that indeed this vaccine will provide good quality protection against those as well. So overall, we're looking pretty optimistic, but again, viruses can mutate and they work on their schedule, not ours.
Remind us who's considered at high risk.
So this is where it gets a little bit complicated because our official National Advisory Council immunization lists are a little bit different for influenza and COVID. Both groups, definitely over 65, are considered a high-risk group. Second, pregnant women, absolutely a high-risk group. Influenza and COVID are both bad for mom and baby, and so those people should definitely get vaccinated. Also, because it's the only way to protect newborns from hospitalization with these viruses, because we don't vaccinate them, is to pass on those antibodies from mom. So pregnant people are really high on the list. And then after that, we have immunocompromised people. So people who have any issues with their immune system are considered high risk. And then the recommendations start to diverge a little bit as we get better science. So for influenza, we have a strong recommendation for healthcare workers and people working close to people who might be vulnerable. We don't yet have that as a recommendation for COVID, although we probably should. And for COVID, Canada's really been a world leader in recognizing that more severe infections happen in Indigenous people, in people experiencing homelessness, in equity deserving groups, and in people in congregate living. So those are actually all listed as high priority groups. And frankly, they probably should be for influenza as well.
And what do we know about vaccine uptake right now and how that might be improved?
Yeah, it's not great. So in the pre-pandemic world, we had this goal of getting 80% of vulnerable people vaccinated for influenza. And in the best years, we could get to like 72, 73%. So not great, but not terrible. Unfortunately, it does look like even flu shots are waning a little bit. Now, in contrast with COVID, we don't have set goals, but our last set of vaccines, we had fewer than 20% of people take a COVID vaccine. And so we're nowhere near that sort of uptake for COVID vaccine. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but I think one of the reasons is we haven't really effectively communicated why you need updated vaccines. Nobody expects a flu shot they got 5 years ago to protect them against this year's flu strain. But for whatever reason, people often think they got a number of COVID vaccines, so they don't need any more. And that's categorically wrong. Your best protection is when you have a vaccine that matches or is very close to the circulating variants that
That is Dawn Bowdish, filling in for Dr. Bardwaj with a bit of a medical column this morning, talking about the status of vaccines as the fall illnesses ramp up. It is October 1st, and your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 19 degrees and October is coming in hot. A high today of 27. Not quite as hot as we were yesterday, but still very warm for this time of year. It's going to be windy again, and we do have a chance of showers, slight one, and a risk of a thunderstorm today. The campaign manager for the Manitoba PC's 2023 election campaign was named in an early memo about a rail park project that received an $18 million provincial grant right before the campaign started. CBC's Bartley Kivas has details.
A provincial briefing note obtained by CBC News through a Freedom of Information request states Marnie Larkin was slated to meet in 2022 with PC Economic Development Minister Cliff Cullen. The meeting was about a regional rail port in the arm of Rechot, south of Winnipeg. Larkin went on to become the PC campaign manager the following year. Days before the campaign started, the rail port project received an $18 million provincial grant. In a statement, Larkin initially said she was not involved in the rail port project. She later said she was not paid for any work on it. NDP Finance Minister Adrian Sala, who ordered a review of the grant in July, says he now has more concerns.
I think there's concerns here by virtue of the fact that we know that there was supposed to be a meeting that took place between herself and the former government on the rail project. I think that's something that we should know more about.
PC leader Abi Khan wouldn't say what he thought of the PC campaign manager being attached to a project that received a grant from his former government. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Thousands of Manitobans walked through downtown Winnipeg yesterday on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. They gathered at the Forks and walked to a powwow at RBC Convention Centre. In the crowd, Kyla Fontaine, who is studying at the University of Winnipeg to become an Indigenous teacher.
To be here for our ancestors, to walk for the residential school survivors, to walk with some of the survivors, and just to be here on their behalf, and walking for our family. That's what's most important, to be out here and show support, right?
And inside the convention center, hundreds at the powwow. Melissa Weens took her 8-year-old son, who was dressed in his full regalia.
When I was younger, there was nothing like this for us to kind of enjoy our culture and to see everybody else enjoy our culture, right? It was kind of secluded and we weren't all accepted back then. It wasn't a big thing, which I think is great to bring my kids.
Weens hopes people come away from yesterday's events with more acceptance and understanding. The sister of a woman murdered in 2011 says she was shocked to learn the killer will get escorted absences from prison. Skylar Van Weesen was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Gina Swanson. He's serving a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. This summer, the Parole Board of Canada granted him 3 brief escorted absences from prison. He'll be shackled with 2 armed guards accompanying him to Muslim services. Gina's sister, Kirsten Swanson, doesn't think that should be allowed. Aidan Enns is an interim executive director at the John Howard Society.
Once they've achieved eligibility for an escorted temporary absence, they've accomplished a lot in their rehabilitation. This is an indication of how well they're progressing in the eyes of the institution.
And says the goal of the correctional system is not only to protect the public, but to help rehabilitate and reintegrate people after they complete their sentence. Some Manitobans are getting a pay raise today. Minimum wage in this province goes up to $16 an hour. It had been $15.80. Manitoba's not alone in boosting the minimum. Ontario, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and PEI are increasing their minimum pay. As of today, Ontario has the highest minimum at $17.60 an hour, and the lowest is Alberta at $15 an hour. At least 69 people are dead after a powerful 6.9 magnitude quake hit the Philippines. An overwhelmed hospital treating patients in its driveway. Fears of aftershocks after the earthquake are real. The epicenter near Cebu, several buildings collapsed, trapping people inside. Some are still being pulled from the rubble. The military has now been sent in to help. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Well, the Jets were first to score last night.
There's a turnover and a backhander slides through Volstead. And the Jets grab a 1-0 lead. And this is another of the former Bulldogs, Cole Kepke. His first goal here tonight.
Cole Kepke in the first period on Sportsnet against the Minnesota Wild. A second goal from Vlad Nemesnikov in the second period, but Winnipeg couldn't eke out a win, losing 3-2. Still, Coach Scott Arniel liked what he saw.
We know each other pretty well, two divisional opponents, but, there are lots of good things I liked on our side. Did some real nice things. Really liked, how we hemmed them in at times. Did some real good things that way.
Jonathan Toews left the game in the second period after playing a total of 10 minutes. The coach saying Toews had a bit of a tweak. In net, Connor Hellebuck making his preseason debut, stopping 16 shots. The Jets wrap up the preseason in Calgary Friday night. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
I just posted about the minimum wage, by the way, so we'll take calls on this. You can also answer on my Facebook page if you choose to weigh in there. So it's my Marcy Marcusa page on Facebook, which acts as a show page when we're on. Minimum wage up to $16. If you're a worker or an employer, what do you think and what's the impact on you? So let's just hit post. And if you want to weigh in, you can weigh in there. Let's get to our regional forecast now, though. Abby is in with those details.
It's going to be warm and sunny across board today. We will be seeing a few clouds, also possible showers in some region, but above board, we will see a mild and humid day for much of the province today. Winnipeg, partly cloudy outside, 19 degrees. Sunshine will mix with clouds through the day. We do have a slim chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorms that will come in the mix. And again, sometime expect more of that this afternoon. Temperatures pushing to 27 and later today. In the Pembina Valley region, modern Winkler out all the way down to the U.S. border, we're seeing 18 degrees there. A cloudy start. Conditions will mirror just like Winnipeg. Sun and clouds today. A slim chance of showers. A risk of thunderstorms later. It will feel hot with temperatures around 27, but the humidity is going to make it feel hotter than that. For the Westman region, Brandon and surrounding communities, we're looking at 18 degrees this morning. Sunshine will dominate the day for that part of the province. We'll see a hot and humid high near 30 degrees for that part of the province. In the Parkland region around Dauphin, we're seeing cloudy conditions also this morning, 16 degrees there. Expecting a mix of sun and clouds and a slim chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorms later in the day, warming up to 27. For the Interlake region, Gimli and surrounding region, we're seeing 18 degrees there this morning. Also mixed skies, a mix of sun and clouds in the forecast, a slim chance of showers, and then we'll see some thunderstorms also coming with that. High around 27 for folks around that Gimli area. Now, tracking it into the northern part of the province, we start from the powerful influence surrounding communities all the way down to Gillam. We're looking at clear skies this morning, Mount 17 degrees. Expect a mix of sun and clouds through the day. Also, slim chance of showers in the mix, and temperatures will be warming to about 25 degrees with light winds. Sometimes you might feel the humidity come with those winds. In the Thompson region, we're looking at clear conditions also now, 14 degrees. Sunshine will hold through most of the day with the humidity being felt. It's going to feel close to 30 degrees. You'll warm up to 24. And then further north in Churchill, we're looking at mostly cloudy skies at this time. 11 degrees we're spotting there. Sunshine breaks through today with warm, breezy southerly winds. Highs will be near 24, though with the humidity, it's going to feel hotter than that. So it's more like warm, breezy, and maybe some showers spotted here and there, but nothing too major till Friday.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Very Frank.
It's been a quiet commute overall, but if you're out there, you see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Let's get to business news now. Hallie Cotnam is with us with our business report. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's start about, 12:01 a.m. this morning. The U.S. government, as we've been hearing on the news, essentially ran out of money. It's considered shutdown. What actually happens today?
Yeah, the federal departments will start to furlough or lay off employees. Last night, a memo was sent out to these agencies telling them to start to wind down their work. Now, we know there are many exceptions for essential workers, including air traffic controllers and law enforcement agencies like ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the DEA. But economists estimate up to 800,000 federal employees will be furloughed. The central issue in this dispute was about health care funding. The Democrats wouldn't support a short-term funding extension, which would have kept that government going until the 21st of November, because they're trying to force the government to reverse cuts made to Medicaid during that big, beautiful bill. But as we've been hearing, President Trump is signaling that he may use this opportunity to fire employees, not just furlough them, because he's trying to shrink the size of government. It's really not clear how long this is going to last, Marcy. A 35-day shutdown during Trump's first term was the longest in U.S. history. Meanwhile, there may be fewer staff at border crossings, which might make it more difficult or time-consuming for Canadians to go to the U.S.
Let's go to another story. We were just talking about this. Workers in parts of Canada will get a little bump in their pay today, including in Manitoba.
That's right, where the minimum wage is now $16 per hour. Ontario's minimum wage now $17.60. Saskatchewan's $15.35. And Nova Scotia and PEI is now $16.50. Alberta is the only province that has not boosted its minimum wage. Its rate of $15 per hour is now the lowest in Canada, and the rest of the provinces already raised their minimum wage earlier this year, including notably BC, which is at $17.85.
And finally, the rates of credit card fraud are really shooting up. What's the actual story here now?
Yeah, this is from a new report from Equifax Canada showing credit card fraud has almost doubled in the past year. Out of every 10,000 cards, Marcy, 75 are now fraudulent compared to 44 a year ago. Carl Davies heads up the Fraud, Identity and Compliance Department at Equifax Canada. He says people are using technology to fake the paperwork.
The quality of those forgeries is increasing exponentially, and we think that's a lot to do with artificial intelligence. AI gives almost anybody the ability to create really, really convincing fake driver's licenses or fraudulent letters of employment if you feed the AI what is potentially a good one. And so because of that, organizations are becoming increasingly challenged to separate the good from the bad.
Davies says he's also seeing a sharp increase in identity thefts, in which criminals harvest information through scams or phishing or data breaches or what you or I are posting on our Facebook pages. And that information makes its way to the dark web and is auctioned off to fraudsters.
And I know I used the word finally, but you actually do have one more story I want to hear about. This is about a peculiar traffic stop in California.
Yeah. Police in Northern California pulled over a car after it made an illegal U-turn, only to find no driver behind the wheel and therefore no one to ticket. Officers with the San Bruno Police Department were conducting routine traffic stops looking for drunk drivers when a self-driving Waymo made a turn right in front of them. Officers couldn't write a ticket because they say their citation books don't have a box for robot. A post about this has gone viral. People are outraged. The cops didn't ticket Waymo, which is owned by Google's parent company, Alphabet. Others want to know, how did the police get the car to pull over in the first place? A spokesperson for Waymo says it's investigating and points out that the company's autonomous driving system is being closely monitored.
We are now officially the Jetsons. All right. Thanks, Hal. I appreciate your time, Hallie. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Hallie Cottonham with our business news. All right, what have we got coming up in the show? So after 7 o'clock, we're going to hear from a Winnipeg woman who says she does not think that the man who killed her sister should have been granted an escorted temporary absence from the prison where he's serving his life sentence. She wants the criminal code changed in this country. We're going to hear from her. We had a feature interview with her in the studio, so stay tuned. We'll hear that in the next hour. Also, we're going to take you over to a school in Winnipeg's West End to see how the Universal School Nutrition Program is working this fall. You might remember this is the first full school year that program is going to be in place. Next, though, we have some brand new music to play because in just over a couple weeks, 2 weeks from now, William Prince will release his latest album. It's called Further from the Country, and it's a follow-up to his 2023 album, Stand in the Joy. This song is the second single from the upcoming record. It's called For the First Time.
I was driving down the 40, leaving Indiana. On my way to San Francisco, warm whiskey in my hand. A hard truth lay before me. The officer tapped on the window. I was playing t-ball in a dream with my old man. Watching TV with the sound off, waiting for a sign. I'd give anything to see you one more time. I'd settle for a dream, and there you'd be, and I would get to hold you for the first time in a long time, for the first time in a long time. Feels like God don't give a damn when you're waking up at 4 a.m. wearing a reflective vest, blowing smoke into the ceiling fan. And there's 1,000 miles between the place where you last felt at home and 1,000 hours till you pay back what you owe. Driving home with no seatbelt on, ignoring every sign. Maybe I'll just come to you instead, leave this all behind, and there you'd be, and I'd be happier than ever for the first time in a long time, for the first time in a long time. You don't break me like it used to. You don't break me like it used to. You don't break me like it used to. For the first time in a long time. For the first time in a long time. For the first time in a long time. I was driving down the 40, leaving Indiana.
Man, everyone's got those artists, right? For me, William Prince is one of those artists that I feel like he's singing my soul. Whenever I listen to the lyrics, there's always something that stays with me about what he's singing, and it's just so reflective. He's also just got that gorgeous voice. Peguis First Nations, William Prince, that's one of his new ones. It's called For the First Time. As we mentioned, it comes off his album that is coming out in full, in a couple of weeks. It's called Further from the Country.
Jarrett Martineau hosts Reclaimed.
In an hour, you could hear everything from powwow music to a soft acoustic ballad to an electronic record to a dub track, all in the same hour from an Indigenous artist from any part of the world. Eclecticism is an overused word, obviously, but I think the sheer diversity that gets represented on the show is something that's totally unique.
Reclaimed with Jarrett Martineau. Available now on CBC Listen.
In the late 90s, a groundbreaking all-female music festival emerged, led by Canadian artist Sarah McLachlan.
Promoter said, you can't put two women on the same bill. People won't come. And it put a huge fire under my butt to prove them wrong.
Representation for women in rock music wasn't there.
And worse, you're being pitted against each other.
Lilith became a freight train.
Catch the documentary that chronicles a pivotal moment in music culture. Watch Lilith Fair, Building a Mystery, for free on CBC Gem.
It is 11 minutes now to 7 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. My name's Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio on your morning show. Hopefully your morning's going well so far. It should be in terms of if you're walking or biking or if you're standing at the bus stop. You've got beautiful weather if you're an active commuter. Maybe pack an umbrella if you got a spot for it, because once this warm heat cracks, we could see, in fact, a bit of a storm this afternoon. So we'll see. We have a risk of a thunderstorm in Winnipeg, but it's just a slight risk right now, but it is because we are going to get to a high of 27 and with humidex 30. So that's kind of weather where we could get this. Feels a bit more like the middle of summer than October 1st, but here we are. Mainly clear right now. It's already 19 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. Well, still ahead on the program this morning, we're going to have a discussion with a political science professor after another suspicious fire outside a cabinet minister's office, or at a cabinet minister's office. This was reported yesterday. It was in the early hours of yesterday morning as Heather was breaking it on our news. Here's some of what Chris Adams had to say about the most recent fire in Hanny Fontaine's office.
What I worry about is things are escalating, and I'm worried that somebody's going to get killed, with arson.
So we'll have that conversation about the concerns that Christopher Adam has about this right after 7 o'clock. And if you want to read about the story on the website in case you've missed this, this was yesterday, but there has been, as I mentioned, another fire. So yesterday was another fire at the NDP Cabinet Minister's constituency office, because last week we reported smashed windows at Hanny Fontaine's Main Street office. Previous fires, though, were at Bernadette Smith's office. Now, her office is on Selkirk Avenue, and Hanny Fontaine's, as I mentioned, on Main Street. So we'll hear more about this from the perspective of Christopher Adams. We also are going to hear from Premier Wap Kinew and Mayor Scott Gillingham, who also weighed in on what happened yesterday in the early hours of the morning. So that's all still ahead on Information Radio. Well, speaking of politics, let's look nationally and internationally now. U.S. President Donald Trump, along with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, have delivered their new plan for Gaza. As you may have heard on World Report, they presented their 20-point plan earlier this week from the White House, and as many leaders have weighed in, and as many leaders are weighing in right now, Hamas is considering the proposal. Joining us is Rami Khoury to talk about where we're at. He's a distinguished public policy fellow at the American University of Beirut. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So while we're waiting for Hamas's response to this plan, how likely do you think that it is they're going to accept this as it stands?
It's very unlikely they'll accept it as it stands. It's extremely likely that they will respond in a positive way, saying that they are appreciative of some of the elements of the plan. They want to keep the negotiations going. They want to be involved in the negotiations, which they were not in the initial talks to come up with the plan, because this plan, as it was released in Washington with Netanyahu and Trump, is an American-Israeli plan. It's mainly an Israeli plan that the Americans adopted. And this has to be changed in the next stage to become a plan that reflects Israeli and Palestinian and American interests simultaneously.
Can you give us some details when you look at this plan with why you're describing it as unlikely to be adopted as is, and you described it as an American-Israeli plan for those that haven't leaned into what's in this?
Well, it focuses very heavily on Israeli security needs, which is perfectly reasonable. That's what negotiations do. It's explicit. It gives time elements. It specifies what will happen if Hamas doesn't go along with the plan. All the things that Israel wants are spelled out in detail, and the sanctions for not complying are spelled out. None of this comes parallel on the Palestinian side. The Palestinian demands are not clearly spelled out. There's no time element. Many of the things that the Palestinians want, for instance, a Palestinian statehood, which is their right, it's mentioned as a possibility or an aspiration, which is really very colonial. It's not an aspiration. It's a right. The UN has voted on this many times. And so there's no balance in how the plan deals with the urgency or the specificity of the needs of the Palestinians and the needs of the Israelis. But this is what happens in a colonial situation, which is what we're dealing with. And this is why better negotiations are needed to adjust the weaknesses and come up with a genuinely effective plan that is fair to both sides. That's the only kind of negotiation that succeeds, when both sides get what they want, and both sides are going to have to give up something, but that's normal.
Does the plan address the fate of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails?
Yes, it does, and it's very specific on that because this is one of the big issues for the Israelis. They want all the hostages out, the dead and the alive, and and it says they got to be released in 72 hours after the plan goes into effect. And if they're not, then there's threats of resuming the attacks against all of Gaza. And the Palestinians are promised then if they release the hostages, then they would get Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jail released, 250 life sentence prisoners and 1,700 Gazans detained since October 23. But that's only out of 10,000 Palestinian prisoners who are in Israeli jail now. So again, the imbalance is pretty clear and unacceptable.
So the critical question is what happens the day after? So what does the plan say about that, the path forward for Gaza?
It spells out a pretty specific series of bodies and activities and responsibilities. But like most of the rest of the plan, it's very colonial in its outlook and its implementation. It looks to set up a technical committee, mostly made up of Palestinians with some Arabs and international players who would do the technical management of day-to-day service delivery in Palestine. It then talks about an international peacekeeping force, which is mostly Arab and Islamic, that is responsible for security and border and demilitarization of Palestine. And then it talks about an overall, they call it a board of peace, which would be like the board of directors that oversees the whole redevelopment of Gaza. And this is supposed to be headed by Trump and Blair. So if you were writing a textbook on Western colonialism, this is what you would do. You would set up these structures that give real authority and oversight to white European North old men, and the local indigenous people of the South will get something if they behave. So this is how things have been done for 400 years, but the Hamas and the Palestinians and most of the world that's now supporting them is saying that the colonialism ended, and we need to move into a new era of equal rights for all people and simultaneously implement it, not just sequentially.
Who are you waiting to hear from, Rami, today in terms of reaction to this? Because we've heard some of the leaders reacting in the broader region, but who have we yet to hear from that you're anxious to hear from?
Well, Hamas itself has said it's studying the plan. They probably, I would guess they need another day or so. I would think tomorrow we're likely to get an official response from them. And I'd like to hear from more groups all around the Arab world. Governments are mostly going to be positive, saying this is good and we need to work with them, etc. But public opinion in the Arab region is mostly critical of the plan, and we need to have that public opinion expressed. And also people all around the world. We need to get views from people all over the world about this, because this will only work if the negotiation is supported by a dynamic global mechanism that brings in other parties in the mediation. You can't allow the U.S. to dominate the mediation because the U.S. is also the principal military and diplomatic backer of the Israeli genocidal assault on Gaza, as the UN calls it. And therefore, you need to have other people involved in mediating, and we need to hear the views of Europeans and Asians and others about this, especially people like the Chinese and others.
Thank you very much for your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Marcy.
It is Rami Curry, Distinguished Public Policy Fellow at the American University of Beirut. To local headlines now with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a sister of a woman murdered in 2011 says she was shocked to learn the killer will get escorted absences from prison. Skylar Van Wiesen was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Gina Swanson. He is serving a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. We're going to hear more from the sister coming up. And summer break is over for Manitoba MLAs as the legislature resumes sitting today. More Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
As mentioned, 19 and clear right now. We could see a bit of rain this afternoon on our way to high of 27. The drive, good. The commute, good. 788-3093 if you spot something that's problematic. In the next hour, how is the food nutrition program working this fall? We're going to take it to a school in Winnipeg's West End. In addition, a Winnipeg woman, as you heard in Heather's news, says she doesn't think the man who killed her sister should have been granted this ETA, as it's been called. So we're going to hear from her in a feature interview. And then right after 7 o'clock, that interview about what happened, not just in Ahani Fontaine's office yesterday with the fire, but smashed windows last week, Bernadette Smith's office on Selkirk with multiple fires. We're going to get some analysis about this, so stay tuned. I'm Marcy Marcusa. World Report is next on CBC 89.3 FM.
On The Current.
I support the process of citizens being able to choose an issue that they care about.
The Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, is wrapping up a town hall tour of her province, hearing people's thoughts on how to get a better deal with Ottawa. Meanwhile, separatists and pro-Canada groups are touring the province as well. The View from Alberta coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. For weeks, Alberta Premier has been advocating for Prime Minister Mark Carney to add pipeline to his list of nation-building projects. And Danielle Smith has been hinting a key corporate player could soon come on board. And now she's about to announce a new project later today, one that could strengthen Canada's energy infrastructure. Let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. So, Janice, the first round of major projects didn't include a pipeline because there was no corporate proposal for one. So is that about to change?
Indeed. Look, we don't know yet what energy sector players are involved, where they're looking at, even what the proposal is exactly. But Danielle Smith's been meeting with the energy sector for weeks, trying to get another pipeline proposal off the ground. And for her personally to be part of this announcement suggests she's gearing up to champion it. The Premier talked about how badly Alberta needs more pipelines as she reacted to yesterday's news of job cuts at Imperial Oil.
This is what happens when you have uncertainty, and this is part of the reason why we have to work very quickly to get to a resolution with Ottawa so that we can start building again.
When the Major Projects Office released its first list of priorities, there was no mention of a pipeline. But Alberta's Premier at that point didn't seem to mind. Along with that first list, it also had previewed future support for carbon capture and storage projects, part of what Smith has pitched to the federal government as a grand bargain, that in return for approving another pipeline so exports can find new markets from a West Coast port, the industry would massively invest in emerging technologies like carbon capture and storage. Smith also said that new pipelines won't proceed unless the Carney government gets rid of what she characterizes as bad bills that have discouraged new corporate investments. Those bills remain in place.
Okay, so interesting that you're saying that, because now, of course, looking at what the federal government is going to have to consider then when deciding whether or not to back this.
And if this is a West Coast pipeline, the focus now shifts to BC Premier David Eby, who's openly complained about how talk of a new bitumen pipeline has sucked up all the political oxygen. Eby came to Ottawa last month and he warned that if one of the bad bills that Smith wants eliminated, that ban on oil tanker traffic along sensitive parts of the West Coast, the government risks losing the support of First Nations for projects it has already fast-tracked, like expanding the liquefied natural gas terminal in Kitimat.
Janice McGregor for us in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Well, for the first time in more than 6 years, the United States government is shutting down.
The yeas are 55 and the nays are 45. The 60-vote threshold having not been achieved, the bill upon reconsideration is not passed.
The Democrats and Republicans failed to reach an agreement on a government spending bill. The midnight deadline passed, setting off a chain reaction. Service for millions of Americans are now on hold, and the futures of hundreds of thousands of jobs up in the air. Steve Futterman has the latest.
At midnight Eastern Time, it happened.
Our breaking news, a government shutdown taking effect as the clock strikes midnight here in Washington, D.C.
That's how it was reported on CNN. It's the first government shutdown since December 2018. That one lasted 35 days, the longest ever. Now the blame game begins. Republicans, like House Speaker Mike Johnson, are putting the blame on Democrats, especially Democratic Senate Leader Chuck Schumer.
Chuck Schumer dug his heels in, and Leader Jeffries did as well, and made it clear that they are willing to close the government down. It's stunning. I cannot believe that Chuck Schumer has done this, really.
Meanwhile, Schumer is blaming Republicans.
Democrats do not want a shutdown.
We stand ready to work with Republicans to find a bipartisan compromise, and the ball's in their court.
President Trump yesterday, before the shutdown, said he might fire federal workers.
We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting programs that they like.
Among things that could be affected are access to national parks and air travel. But many things will continue, including veteran services and Social Security programs. Traditionally, these things have come to an end when the public decides which side is to blame. Whichever side that is, usually is the one that starts to compromise. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Still in the U.S., Portland, Oregon is preparing to receive the National Guard. It is the latest city to top U.S. President Donald Trump's list of places he says needs a cleanup. Trump says the decision to send in troops comes after months of violent riots targeting immigration and enforcement facilities. But local residents say that is not what they're experiencing. The CBC's Julia Wong has more from Portland.
For months, protesters have been outside an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Portland. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump is deploying troops to protect those facilities from what he says are domestic terrorists. The president calling the city war-ravaged. Resident Catherine Nestor spoke to CBC News along the waterfront.
How do you feel that the National Guard is coming to Portland?
I feel really bad about it. It's not needed. It's very scary as a citizen to have military deployed against us domestically. I mean, you can look around. Does this look like a war-ravaged place? It's not.
Fellow resident Emily Evans finds it laughable, gesturing to people walking in the green space near the water.
There's no war anywhere.
Politicians, unions, and business leaders have signed a letter rejecting the military intervention. Andrew Hone is the CEO of Portland Metro Chamber. He says the war zone designation by the U.S. president can have consequences.
When that kind of language gets out there, it has a negative and detrimental impact, not just to the reputation of our city, but to people who we know are considering making investments here.
Gloria Warner lives near the immigration facility and calls the protesters irritating. She supports the National Guard's impending arrival.
I hope they bring their water cannons with them.
The city and state have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration, hoping to halt the deployment. Boots on the ground are expected later this week. Julia Wong, CBC News, Portland.
An overwhelmed hospital in the Philippines treats patients in its driveway. The fear of possible aftershocks after yesterday's earthquake is real, and many people say they're just too scared to go back inside. At least 69 people are dead after a powerful 6.9 magnitude quake struck Tuesday night. The epicenter measured off the coast of the central Cebu province. As the search for survivors continues, so do efforts to restore power and water supplies that were badly damaged. And the military has now been sent in to help. An international flotilla attempting to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza is getting closer to its final destination. The global Samud flotilla is live streaming the voyage as more than 40 civilian boats carry aid, politicians, lawyers, and activists towards Gaza. Its goal is to break Israel's naval blockade of the Palestinian territory, and the vessels are now within 150 nautical miles of the shoreline. The group says several of its boats have been approached by an Israeli military vessel and is now preparing for a possible interception. Italy and Greece, meantime, are calling on Israel to guarantee the safety of all flotilla members. Back here at home, the minimum wage is rising today in 5 Canadian provinces. Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island have all tied the minimum wage to inflation. So as of today, minimum wage workers can earn $17.60 an hour in Ontario, $15.35 an hour in Saskatchewan. Alberta is now the only province that has not boosted its minimum wage this year. And cookie lovers, be warned. A new online scam is gaining popularity, and it involves Girl Guide cookies. Yasmin Renea has the details.
They don't seem to have access to any cookies. They're not associated with our organization.
Diamond Eisinger, spokesperson for BC Girl Guide, says scammers have baked up a fresh way to steal money.
We are obviously concerned about seeing examples like this out there in the wild, but we hope that they don't discourage any of our supporters from supporting a really essential program for kids and youth and adults.
Posts from Facebook community groups in BC and Ontario show people who claim their children are selling the cookies. They ask for e-transfers up front, but don't deliver the tasty treats.
Hello? Would you like to buy a box of Girl Guide cookies?
Cookies are the Girl Guides of Canada's main fundraising tool, helping raise money for programs, activities, and camp fees.
Scammers online today will do anything for a dishonest dollar.
Cybersecurity expert David Shipley says there are ways you can protect yourself.
First, pay after delivery. So make arrangements, get the cookies dropped off by the parents, and then once you physically have the goods, do the payment then and there.
But if you do fall for these kinds of scams, he says don't be ashamed and report it to help others. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to October 1st. Although it's so warm, it feels like the middle of summer in Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This hour on the program, inmates in this country can apply to go on an ETA. That's an escorted temporary absence. The reasons, things like personal development. But a Winnipegger whose sister was murdered questions why her sister's killer can't do development behind bars. Her sister's killer has been granted an ETA, and she says it's wrong.
He should not be leaving the jail at all. My sister can't raise her daughter. She couldn't raise her daughter. I have not had anybody that I know that they are all shocked and they get goosebumps when I tell them what the decision of the parole board did.
We'll talk to her this hour on the show. Also, to something completely different. We'll take you to Wellington School in Winnipeg's West End.
Today, we're going to have egg bites. So I need my vegetables.
And what do you got?
I got the pepper, I got the green onions, the red pepper, something colorful for the kids to see.
We are going there because we want to hear more from that person. That is the person responsible for feeding the kids there through the school nutrition program. This is the first full school year with that nutrition program through the province. And so we're going to hear how it's going over at Wellington School. That's at 7:40. That'll be a nice, bright story. Right now, though, let's go to Heather Wells. She has headlines and other developing news.
Good morning. Well, the campaign manager for the Manitoba PC's 2023 election campaign was named in an early memo about a rail park project that received an $18 million provincial grant right before the campaign started. Bartley Kivas will be by to tell us more. And some Manitobans are getting a pay raise today. Minimum wage in this province goes up to $16 an hour. It had been $15.80. More Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
Thank you.
We're asking you to call on that minimum wage question and what you think about it, whether you're an employer or a worker. What are your thoughts on $16, the increase? We also are asking you to weigh in on Facebook. So 788-3205 is our listener line. And Facebook comments already coming in on my Marcy Marcusa page. Lori English saying it's still not a living wage. As a country, we need to commit to paying people enough to live with dignity. Bill Walters simply wrote inflation. And Sky Scarlett says, wow, really? I would like to see someone from the government live on that. I'm sure it would change overnight. So some criticism is the early response. And if you want to weigh in with any perspective, we'd like to hear from you. 788-3205. Let's get to Abby, who's here with our forecast.
Another warm day ahead for most of the regions today. Winnipeg right now partly cloudy, still 19 degrees. Sun and clouds in the mix today. We warm up to 27 and we're seeing 16 to 18 from Brandon all the way down to Gimli. Up north, we're seeing 11 to 18 for the powerful influence, Thompson and Churchill. Most of those regions will see 24, 25. All in all, Marcy, it's going to be a warm, breezy day with some sunshine and a few scattered showers spotted in some regions today. Winnipeg right now, 19, warming up to 27.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
All right, the morning commute, Corey?
Very quiet commute so far. I haven't heard of any major issues out there, but you can give me a call, 204-788-3093 if you see something.
So let's get started this half hour with the story that was developing yesterday. Early in the morning, there has been another fire at an NDP cabinet minister's constituency office. Now, last week we reported smashed windows at Nahanni Fontaine's Main Street office in Winnipeg and fires at Bernadette Smith's office on Selkirk Avenue. Early yesterday morning, on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a fire, as you heard reported here, was set in Fontaine's constituency office. I should say happened in Fontaine's office. Fire crews did have it out within an hour. A spokesperson for Minister Fontaine said in an email, quote, "This is a serious matter that is currently under police investigation, so we will not be commenting further at this time." And CBC has yet to confirm a cause, by the way. Here is, though, Premier Oct.1 talking about what happened. He was at an Orange Shirt Day event at the Forks when he was speaking.
Politics, wherever you believe in that sort of spectrum, I just want everyone here to make a ton of noise and send support that Nahanni Fontaine, we got your back, and everyone deserves to be safe when they go to work. And when we look at what's going on around North America with violence going on in politics in the States, and we see all sorts of division happening here in Canada, I just want to make it really clear that in Manitoba, we have to keep peace. We have to keep calm. And when you look at the residential school survivors, they changed Canada for the better in an entirely peaceful, dignified, compassionate way.
The mayor of the city of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham, also responded.
Well, vandalism and political violence is reprehensible. We have no place for it in our society, none. And it doesn't matter if you don't agree with someone's politics. Vandalism and violence is just not acceptable. That's not the kind of democracy that we strive for here. So let's settle our differences at the ballot box.
Christopher Adams is adjunct professor of political science at the University of Manitoba and here this morning to weigh in, as this has been now a series of events. Good morning to you.
Hi, Marcy. Nice to be with you again.
So we don't know, as I mentioned, if this latest case is arson or if the MLA was specifically targeted, just to be clear. But police are investigating, and it is the latest. And as I outlined, the string of incidents, fires and vandalism at constituency offices of Bernadette Smith and Nahanni Fontaine. Because of that context, I mean, how concerning is this to you?
Well, it's very disconcerting. The idea that there's been a green light across North America for people to be violent towards politicians. And, we know federal politicians have been the target in Ottawa, and many people are hesitant to run for political office because of it. And now it seems to be more and more in our local scene with Bernadette Smith's office, as well as the constituency office for Nahanni Fontaine. So it is really disconcerting. But as you said, Marcy, we don't know exactly if it's a target, but I mean, the probability is that it is.
Well, what concerns you about the timing of yesterday's fire?
Well, I was at the Orange Shirt Day at the Forks yesterday, and I saw Oct.1's remarks and his speech, a very dignified speech he gave. And also, a lot of people there did not realize that Nahanni Fontaine's office had been vandalized. The peace ceremony started at 10. People had left their homes at 9 to be at the event. So people weren't sure as to exactly what Oct.1 was talking about, but now everybody does know. But I would say that it is disconcerting. Nahanni Fontaine's a very high profile First Nations woman who's been in the Assembly since 2016, so close to a decade, and she's had a couple of high profile issues politically over the past 6 months. So it's disconcerting that even if people disagree with her, and many people do, that there might be this action taken, that there's some sort of green light to be violent. And Marcy, these offices, constituency offices, are fairly high profile. They're on usually high traffic streets. They're places where people go in to get some help, to get information, to maybe contact the MLA or find out how to contact the MLA. So they're high profile places, and they're staffed by one or two full-time staffers who could be in the office when the arson occurs, even if it's overnight. Sometimes people are working late at night in the constituency office, so it's very dangerous. It's not just property, but it's a threat to life.
You somewhat answered this, or you reflected on hearing the premier, but we also heard the mayor there. I'm just curious what your take is on how they addressed what was happening.
Well, I think I mean the fact that we look to our political leaders to talk about calm and to talk about the ballot box is the important place to voice your concern, and also it's not just the ballot box; it's peaceful marches like what happened yesterday. There's a sea of orange shirts, thousands and thousands of people marching from the Forks to the convention center. So those are the ways by which, in a democracy, people look for change and without threats to people's lives. But Marcy, this is not the first time in Manitoba we've had violent action. Manitoba is the first province to come into Confederation with gunshots. I mean, somebody says that, but we had bombing of the Franco-Manitoban Center in the 1980s. We had the Ku Klux Klan in Saskatchewan and Manitoba during the 1930s. So it's not like brand new, but at the same time, it's very disconcerting for those involved with democracy that this would be happening now.
I just want to ask you about democracy. I want to ask you about the offices. You were drawing that picture, Christopher, of like people going there, that they're accessible. They're in highly visible places in our neighborhoods for a reason. What could the impact of vandalism and potentially, if it's found to be arsons like this, have on people in the area in connecting with things that they need?
Well, it's true. People might be worried about going to the office itself. I understand Bernadette Smith's office closed briefly with a sign saying how to contact staff. These offices, and there's the issue with Spruce Woods when that by-election took so long to be called. These offices are community offices. There are places by which people can go in. They might not know the difference between federal, provincial, or civic services. They go in, they say, I'm having trouble with I'm trying to get my mother to come in from overseas to be a landed immigrant, or I haven't got my welfare check and I don't know what to do, who to call, or I have an issue with my neighbors, that my neighbors are a problem to me. These sorts of things are the type of things that just walk in the door, and they might not be something that the constituency office can respond to right away, but there is somebody there as a kind of a traffic person to know where to direct these types of services. So they're important. The other thing, Marcia, is we have to keep in mind there are three types of offices that MLA operates with. One is the one in the legislature, and if you're a cabinet minister, you have a cabinet minister's office. Secondly, you have a campaign office that's just temporary. It's when a campaign is underway, and that's where signs and volunteers, etc. And the third type of office is the constituency office, and that, in some ways, is the most important office for the neighborhood.
So speaking of context and wider context, I want to talk about this Nahanni Must Go rally. That's what it's called. It's at the Legislative Building today. One of the organizers is Patrick Allard. He has run against previously Fontaine and St. John's. Now, he told CBC News that if this fire at Fontaine's office was in fact an act of arson, he wants the culprit to be, quote, put in jail for a long time. So I just want to put that out there in his response to this. But what are your thoughts on a rally like this being held in the current political climate and in this moment?
Well, we have seen rallies lately. Another one was when Kirk was assassinated in Utah. We saw, a convoy in front of the legislature. The legislature is a place that draws rallies, both at left wing and right wing and populist rallies, etc. So, but I can understand a spokesperson for a certain movement on the right would be saying that arson is not the correct way, and I think he's probably right in his convictions. But I would say that it is problematic that the door has been opened to attacks on certain politicians, and some people read this as a green light for arson. Preston Manning, who was the head of the Reform Party, which was a peaceful party, but on the right side, there were racists and people who were sometimes out of control, and he didn't lead them, but they were attracted to the Reform Party, and he said moths are attracted to light, and I think that's what happens here when you have demonstrations that can attract other people that you might not want at a demonstration.
Is it irresponsible, though? Because those that are putting on protests and rallies, like the timing of this, then, like, should the brakes be put on if, as you're saying, they're not responsible for any action that would happen if someone comes? I'm not suggesting that, but they could make a choice to sort of separate, given that this just happened yesterday, I guess. I'm curious whether or not the timing should be considered or maybe reconsidered.
Yeah, I don't know the logistics behind this gathering and what went into it and what the versatility is for this. But I myself, as a citizen, would hope that it would be postponed.
You mentioned the States. I mean, you mentioned Charlie Kirk, and obviously things resonate here across the border. We are seeing in the United States a different level of a very clear political violence. How much is that impacting us here in Canada, do you think? Obviously, you drew examples in our Canadian history of violence being in our own past, but I wonder whether or not we're more closely, aligned, or people's, are online, we're all interconnected on Facebook and social media, whether that fuels any of this potentially if it's proven to be political violence here.
Marcy, as I was telling your reporter Josh Crabb yesterday, we've had targeted synagogues. Anti-Semitism is really on the rise in Canada. Anti-Muslim activities are on the rise, and to some extent, Christian churches arson against them. But there is a huge rise in anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim behavior, and a lot of that is connected to what was happening in the United States over the past 4 to 10 to 15 years. And look, we've got a president south of the border who is very much against immigration, very much against people who are part of the so-called culture wars. He speaks against woke, and that sort of rhetoric has opened the door for up here. My college, St. Paul's College, we sponsored refugee families to Canada, and the mood about refugees from Syria and Afghanistan 8 years ago is radically different than it is now, and the tolerance or the welcoming to people who are refugees has changed, and I think in large part that's because of what's happening in the United States.
Thank you for your analysis as always, Chris.
Thanks, Marcy. Have a good week, eh?
Yeah, you as well. Christopher Adams, adjunct professor of political science over at the University of Manitoba. If you want to read about this story, by the way, cbc.ca/Manitoba. 7:25, Wednesday morning, October 1st. The news is coming up. We'll hear more about minimum wage going up today in our province. So that's at 7:30. But right now we turn our attention to sports. And Scott Ricard joins us. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
So the NHL, the Jets losing in more ways than one on the scoreboard last night, right?
Yeah, in their penultimate preseason game, they fell 3-2 to Minnesota. More worrying, though, were the injuries, Marcy. Vlad Nemesnikov and Jonathan Toews both were unable to finish the game. Toews did not play a single shift in the final period, while Nemesnikov was drilled headfirst into the sideboards. Now, head coach Scott Arniel didn't seem overly concerned by either player's condition. He told reporters that Nemesnikov was pulled by concussion spotters and did not have time to return to the game, while Toews, quote-unquote, tweaked something and would be reevaluated on Thursday. Now, injuries aside, much of the talk in Minnesota was about Wild winger Kirill Kaprizov, who, after holding out for a contract extension, got one. Richest in NHL history, $136 million. Even Arniel was asked about his thoughts on the contract.
I wish he wasn't in our division. He's dynamic. He's one of the elite players in this game, and that's a big contract. And he's a guy that, especially in this market here in Mini, that brings people out of their seats. And there's a few dynamic players in the league, and he's certainly one of them.
Another one of those dynamic players is the Jets' own Kyle Connor. The American winger could test free agency next summer. Hockey Night in Canada's Elliot Friedman's reporting that both the Jets and Connor remain open to an extension, so we'll have to wait and see. But it probably just got that much more expensive after the Kaprizov deal.
Our local headline, $136 million man scores for Minnesota Wild as Winnipeg Jets fall.
That's a wild headline.
Let's go to baseball. What stood out for you, speaking of wild cards, from the opening day in the Major League playoffs?
Pitching. Nick Pivetta, Marcy, set a new Canadian postseason record yesterday with 9 strikeouts, although they came in a San Diego loss to the Cubs. Then there's Detroit's Tariq Skubal, who had 14 Ks in the Tigers' narrow win over Cleveland. But the pick of the pitching litter for me was Garrett Crochet. In the pressure cooker of Yankee Stadium, the Red Sox ace was dominant. He struck out 11 and allowed just a single run before giving way to closer Aroldis Chapman. And how about this? Crochet predicted it all, telling his manager Alex Cora before the game that he'd only need to make one call to the bullpen.
Just being arrogant, to be honest. I didn't actually expect that to be the case, but when he sent me back out there, I was determined to leave it that way. To be honest, I really wasn't sure what to expect, especially having not played a postseason game here. But it was an electric atmosphere all night long. I feel like we rose to the occasion. And even in the ninth inning there, I felt like it was really never a doubt with Chapman on the mound.
The Red Sox, Marcy, are now in a position to advance to the American League Division Series against Toronto. A win tonight by Boston would do just that and give them plenty of time to rest up for the Jays. Scary thought for Toronto fans, since the Red Sox obliterated the Jays in a series at the end of the regular season and also boast a far superior bullpen. So Jays faithful, it may hurt to utter these words, but perhaps it's go Yankees go tonight?
Oh, come on now.
I'm sorry. I felt wrong as I said it. Too late now.
It's all right. I'm always conflicted now because now the Jays are like the team they are this year, and I usually cheer for the Red Sox.
Yeah, I know.
Basketball, where we now know our WNBA finalists, right?
Yeah. Phoenix booked its spot last night, eliminating Minnesota, so the Mercury are going to take on Las Vegas for the title. But back to Minnesota. During her exit interview last night, Lynx star Nafisa Collier had some choice words for the league, specifically Commissioner Kathy Engelbert.
I asked how she planned to fix the fact that players like Caitlin are making so little for their first 4 years. Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. That's a mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us. The league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them.
Collier referencing maybe the league's biggest star there, Caitlin Clark, who only makes about $80,000 a year on her entry-level salary, despite generating untold millions for the league. This is going to be interesting. The CBA is up at the end of this month for the WNBA, and reportedly the players in the league are nowhere near hammering out a deal.
All right, Scott, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Scott Regehr on our show every morning with CBC Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Still ahead, how much work does it take to feed a gym full of hungry elementary school students before class? CBC's Jim Agapito visits a Winnipeg school at the crack of dawn to find out more about how the Universal Nutrition Program is working. Stay tuned. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, 19 degrees, and it is so much warmer than October 1st should be. Normal high 14. Today we're headed to 27. It's going to be windy again. There's a slight chance of showers and a risk of a thunderstorm in Winnipeg today. The campaign manager for the Manitoba PC's 2023 election campaign was named in an early memo about a rail park project that received an $18 million provincial grant right before the campaign started. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
A provincial briefing note obtained by CBC News through a Freedom of Information request states Marnie Larkin was slated to meet in 2022 with PC Economic Development Minister Cliff Cullen. The meeting was about a regional rail port in the arm of Reachot, south of Winnipeg. Larkin went on to become the PC campaign manager the following year. Days before the campaign started, the rail port project received an $18 million provincial grant. In a statement, Larkin initially said she was not involved in the rail port project. She later said she was not paid for any work on it. NDP Finance Minister Adrian Sala, who ordered a review of the grant in July, says he now has more concerns.
I think there's concerns here by virtue of the fact that we know that there was supposed to be a meeting that took place between herself and the former government on the rail project. I think that's something that we should know more about.
PC leader Abi Khan wouldn't say what he thought of the PC campaign manager being attached to a project that received a grant from his former government. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A family wants changes to the criminal code after learning a man convicted of murder has been granted escorted temporary absences from prison. Schuyler Van Weesen was convicted of first-degree murder in the 2011 death of Gina Swanson. He is serving a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. This summer, the Parole Board of Canada granted him 3 brief escorted absences from prison. Kirsten Swanson is Gina's sister.
Somebody that is committed a murder so violently, I don't understand how any parole board could see that there's any type of rehabilitation that could be done. We have to live with the consequences. Why should he not?
The parole board says Van Weesen has made progress through in-custody rehabilitative programming. You can hear more on this story in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. Downtown Winnipeg was a sea of orange yesterday as thousands took part in the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. They gathered at the Forks and then walked to a powwow at RBC Convention Centre. In the crowd, Kyla Fontaine. She is studying at the University of Winnipeg to become an Indigenous teacher. Fontaine was pleased to see people from so many different cultures taking part.
Creating that diverse community and allowing other cultures to speak and see how important it is to be walking on, Indigenous ground and to be here to acknowledge it and to see their respect.
Nancy Gray is a residential school survivor from Sapatawayak Cree Nation. She attended school for 4 years in Dauphin. Gray has lived in Winnipeg for 30 years now and is thrilled younger generations are being taught traditional Indigenous culture.
The little ones that I see dancing there, that I'm so proud of them. In my days that I never learned anything like that. Like when I was in the school, they never taught us that, about dancing and that.
Gray says taking in the powwow was fulfilling. Some Manitobans are getting a pay raise today. Minimum wage in this province goes up to $16 an hour today. It had been $15.80. Now, Manitoba is not alone in boosting the minimum pay. Ontario, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and PEI are all increasing their minimum wage. Summer break is over for Manitoba MLAs as the legislature resumes sitting. The fall sessions will see politicians vote on recommended fines for former Premier Heather Stephenson and 2 former cabinet ministers who violated the province's conflict of interest law. The Ethics Commissioner found they had tried to push through approval of a silica sand mining project after the Tories lost the 2023 election, but before the new NDP government could be sworn in. To the Philippines. In the wake of yesterday's earthquake, an overwhelmed hospital treating patients out on the street. Many are scared to go inside, fearing aftershocks. At least 69 people were killed in the 6.9 magnitude earthquake. The epicenter was near Cebu City. A number of buildings have collapsed. Rescue teams are trying to find survivors in the rubble. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, the Jets were first to score last night.
There's a turnover and a backhander slides through Volstead. And the Jets grab a 1-0 lead. And this is another of the former Bulldogs, Cole Kepke. His first goal here tonight.
Cole Kepke in the first period there on Sportsnet against the Minnesota Wild. A second goal from Vlad Namestnikov in the second period. But Winnipeg would end up losing 3-2. Jonathan Toews leaving the game in the second period after playing a total of 10 minutes. And in net, Connor Hellebuck making his preseason debut, stopping 16 shots. The Jets wrap up their preseason in Calgary Friday night. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, just before we turn our attention to today's weather and what's going on in traffic, which is very little, by the way, so we're not delaying something urgent here. I just want to have a little bit of a talk about where we were yesterday, and especially if you're watching our show this morning on YouTube, because you're about to see some gorgeous photos. Abby, I don't know if you've been to this part of the province. We were up at Opaskwayak Cree Nation, Corey Funk and I, and this is very near the Paw.
Oh, close to the Paw, yeah?
So it's like, have you been up there before?
No, I've not traveled that far.
Oh, you would love it. I haven't been up there in many years and never been to where we managed to go yesterday. We found ourselves with just a touch of time before we had to catch our plane to come back. Oh. We were doing our broadcast for Orange Shirt Day there at OCN. But right near the Paw Airport, there are the caves at Clearwater Lake Provincial Park. And these pictures are about to come up on YouTube, so I can describe them for the radio listeners. This was something that was just absolutely stunning. And I'm always surprised by Manitoba. And I always laugh at Manitobans because when you see these photos, you'll go, that's Manitoba?
What? I was going to ask, is that Manitoba?
So what's made you react like that when you're looking at this photo?
The blue and the green
Color the water.
colors of the water. That's what I noticed first. I'm like, is that really here?
It's beautiful, isn't it? So I've only seen blue water like that in Manitoba myself before when you're out at Steep Rock around Lake Manitoba, but this is at the caves. So what this is caves. They're kind of like open rock fissures. So you don't imagine going into a cave and traveling for some time. Imagining going through the caves. So you walk down and you have these small crevices that you can kind of go through. Some of them are so small that you can't get through. But if you can make your way through, you come through and then the other side. And then you'll walk a little more on this beautiful wooded trail through and then the other side. And so there's two ways to experience this: from above, and you can look down into the caves, or you walk down a metal staircase and you travel through the caves. And then ultimately you're at a shoreline, a beachy shore. There's this really funny video of Corey, though. Full disclosure, I did not go because I am claustrophobic. I was nervous. But Corey's like, okay, I'll take photos. And that's what we're seeing here of these gorgeous caves if you're able to visit this part of the province. But there's this funny video where when Corey was trying to convince me to go, he said, oh, you won't get stuck. Come on, it'll be fine. They've got to be big spaces.
They're going to be spiders also.
Well, yeah, right, there's that. But Corey came back, he made this video, and he's like, hi, I'm Corey, let's go in. And then he couldn't get in.
Oh.
He's like, oh, it's too small for me.
Okay, that ends it.
So some of them were really, really small, but just stunning. The stunning natural beauty of Manitoba never fails to disappoint. So wanted to share those photos with you on our YouTube stream this morning. And also just because it feels like we should still be traveling, even our province, even though it's October 1st. Yeah, it's beautiful weather.
It's still beautiful weather. If you want to go check out caves, you can still do that today. We've still got some warm temperatures, and that would enable you to do some things outside before the rain comes in at some time later in the week. We're looking at a warm start across the province. Plenty of sunshine in the forecast today. That would mix with some clouds later. We're going to see some humid air. It gets hotter in some regions. We're still looking at that 19 degrees right now in Winnipeg and, surrounding communities. Sunshine and clouds will trade places through the day, and we'll see a slim chance of showers again by the afternoon period, plus a risk of thunderstorms. The winds become breezy at some point coming from the south, and it's going to push our high to a humid high of 27. With the humidity factored in, it's going to feel close to 30 again today. In the Pembina Valley region, we're seeing 18 degrees around Morden, Winkler, Otona, Morris. Also conditions similar to Winnipeg, a mix of sun and clouds with a slim chance of showers and thunderstorms later. Southerly winds will pick up through the day, and it will feel humid with a high around 27, but it's going to feel close to 30 for that part of the province. Now, for Brandon and the rest of the Westman region, tracking it all the way towards Nipawin, we're looking at 16 degrees, clear morning, sunshine already dominating the day there. Light winds you're getting, becoming breezy later. It will be hot for that part of the province. We're looking at a high of 30 degrees. The actual high for the day will be around 30, and the humidity will make it feel hotter than that. While in the Parkland region, 15 degrees we're seeing now, mostly cloudy also. Some sunny breaks expected, slim chance of showers and possible thunderstorms. Your temperature warms up to 27, but it's going to feel warmer than that. Gimli's at 18, heading for a high of 27. The Power Flame Flow, we're looking at a clear and comfortable 17 degrees. Right now, some clouds will roll in later, slim chance of showers and thunderstorms later, high around 25. Thompson 14, warming up to 24, and Churchill around 11, also warming up to 24 for today. For traffic, we got a call, South Perimeter, Large and St. Anne's. You know that train crossing, it's causing a big delay for people on the south end of the perimeter between Large and St. Anne's, so take that into consideration. You will be encountering traffic, and wherever that train is traveling towards crossing other parts of the city, just know that will also cause a big headache for that part of the city. Norwood Bridge between Queen Elizabeth and Sherbrooke Avenue, the maiden lane is closed for maintenance, so take that into consideration. And also somewhere around Dougal between Terracon and Terracon, the cobbling is also being getting some attention there, so take that into consideration. But if you see anything in traffic, let us know. 788-3093.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Besides those delays Abby mentioned, it looks pretty good out there. I was also just checking on X this morning, and the official traffic management center has been pretty quiet, so hopefully everything's going to continue to move smoothly on this Wednesday, October 1st. Well, let's talk about what you might see in traffic, and that's kids going to school. Almost a third, though, of kids in Manitoba who are going to school are going hungry. They live in poverty, almost a third of our kids. That's according to Statistics Canada. It means a lot of those kids do show up for class with empty stomachs. Manitoba's Universal School Nutrition Program aims to address that. It's now in its second year. This is its first full school year. And the program provides students with meals and snacks with some local funding here in Manitoba, provincial funding, but also federal funding. With 26,000 students in the Winnipeg School Division alone participating in that program last year, obviously the need is there. CBC's Jim Agapito visited a school to see the program in action.
I'm out here at Wellington School in Winnipeg's West End watching breakfast being made for students as part of Manitoba's Universal School Nutrition Program. Let's check it out.
Now chopping it. I'm Susanna Calanza. I'm a food coordinator here at Wellington School. I've been here for so long. I know what the people needs, whatever people they are. I cannot believe when I started working this food coordinator last year, I didn't realize that there are more kids coming to school without eating. And that's drive me to do this job.
My name is Emil Contreras. We are at Wellington School and I'm the principal here. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And for some of us, we don't get to have that on a regular basis. It is really important for emotional, mental, physical health. You know, it brings everyone together. Sometimes it brings the families together. So having breakfast here at the school and for the kids is really, really important for setting them up for a positive day.
How can you focus if your stomach, you know what you're calling that?
Growling.
Growling. How can you concentrate?
We're gonna see you get to work. I know you're gonna be busy. How many students do you think you have today?
I hope we will go over 100. Today we're going to have egg bites. So I need my vegetables.
And what do you got?
I got the pepper, I got the green onions, the red pepper, something colorful for the kids to see. My eggs. See, eggs and eggs and eggs.
How many eggs do you think you're gonna go through today?
Probably around 7 dozens today. Sometimes the kid, they know, because it's nice and they're colorful, they don't care if there's vegetables or not in their food.
Is it hard to feed kids food, like veggies? No.
I thought it might be. I thought it's gonna be a hard one, but when they see it's different, nice colors in it, and I give them I have a vegetable one. I do halal. I do sometimes only cheese if they don't have this.
We all understand that nutrition and having students fed is really, really important. But it's the quality of food that they're receiving that's the second piece. Because of the universal program here, we're able to offer whole foods, things that aren't packaged or prepackaged with a ton of ingredients that they don't need. Ms. Calanza is doing a great job at making homemade meals for these kids.
What do we got there?
Ham. I usually do it differently. Sometimes I julienne cut this, or sometimes I do squares, something different. Same food, but different style.
Ms. Calanza's got a huge impact on the community. When she entered that small kitchen, as you could see, it was magic.
My egg pot. See how beautiful it is?
My name is Selena Paulette Balmore. I think I'm just gonna have some cereal. I don't really know what's for breakfast.
I think it's an egg bite and some hash browns.
Okay, I think I might have that.
Those one's the one with ham on it that has cheese.
Okay, I'll get this one.
This one's ham, right?
Okay, take a bite. Let me know how it tastes.
Yummy.
What's your name?
My name is Jenny Demry.
And you're here with
my grandson.
Okay, so hi, what's your name?
Jeremiah.
And what grade are you in, Jeremiah?
2.
How important is it then for your grandson to come here and get breakfast and lunches and snacks every day?
Cereal, Eggos, and everything, it's expensive. Like you buy a couple boxes, that's $20 right there. Milk is $7? So it helps him a lot. He loves it here. So I always bring him. He always says, "Are you coming with me, Grandma?" And I said, "Yep." It saves me a lot of money.
What's it about Miss Calanza's food that you like?
He likes the pancakes, he likes the poutines, he likes...
And I also like Miss Calanza because he cooks.
If it wasn't for the school, then a lot of kids would go starving during the day.
What did you have to eat this morning?
Eggs and hash browns and toast.
How was it?
Good.
Okay, do you like the food that you get to eat here in the morning?
Yes.
Do you come here every morning?
Food costs are rising so much that takes away the opportunity that they would be able to be doing it at home. So now that we're able to kind of take down again another barrier for them by offering it at school, I think it's just huge for our families.
Carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Next on CBC, a Winnipeg woman says she doesn't think that the man who killed her sister should have been granted an escorted temporary absence, or ETA, from the institution where he's serving his sentence. She wants the criminal code changed. Kirsten Swanson's sister Gina Swanson was killed in 2011 in her Fort Garry area home. She was 33 years old. She was a single mother. She was stabbed. She was strangled. She was sexually assaulted. Skylar Van Wiesen is serving a life sentence in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years after a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder. He has been behind bars since 2016, and Kirsten says that's where he should stay until his parole date arrives. She is with us in studio to talk about some of her concerns. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I know you wrote to Sean Fraser. I saw the letter, Canada's Justice Minister, about this. I just want to read a quote. You said, quote, "If Canada's strongest sentence cannot even guarantee victim families peace for 25 years, then our justice system is not delivering justice at all," end quote. What were you thinking when you found out that about Van Wiesen's escorted temporary absence being granted?
I was shocked. Nobody really explains the process when you're going through it. We thought justice was going to be at least 25 years of peace for my family and friends. And sure enough, I find out about this escorted temporary absence, and it's like it's starting all over again, 14 years later.
What was the impact on you and on your mom and on, Gina's daughter is now 21. What was the impact, and what's the impact been?
Overwhelming, very overwhelming. We just have to take one day at a time. We try to move forward the justice system that, to me, seems very, very broken. And we just seem like little people that we can't do much. And that's why I'm here to speak out, that I don't think the public really, really realizes how severe some things are broken in our justice system.
You alluded to this, but you were talking about the 25 years. When you did hear, the sentence was life without parole for 25 years initially. What did you think that would mean?
It would mean that he would not be outside those walls of his prison at all. I figured the day would come that he would sit in front of a parole board and they would decide whether he is going to be released temporarily or not after the 25 years at minimal.
And how are you impacted when the various requests come up over the years? Because people may not realize how connected victims remain to, in your case, the man who's convicted of murdering your sister.
Well, I appreciate the whole victim system, how we're kept informed with anything that's going on. But it's just very, very deflating, knowing that it feels like the criminals have a little bit more rights than the victims actually do. That's how it feels.
The purpose of his escorted temporary absences is for, quote, personal development purposes, is to attend a mosque to participate in services and prayers, end quote. That's right from the parole board decision. Just so listeners know, these absences, ETAs, can be granted for administrative reasons, personal development, for rehabilitation, family contact. To you, how much does the reason an ETA is, granted or requested factor into your perspective on how you feel about them?
Well, all of those reasons, I know 3 can be granted. The medical and the coroner's reports and judicial proceedings. But if it's also deemed permitted, I guess you would say, from the parole board, that to me is a little outrageous, for a lack of a better explanation. Somebody that is committed a murder one so violently, I don't understand how any parole board could see that there's any type of rehabilitation that could be done, where the victims have to live with this every single day and we have to live with the consequences. Why should he not?
For you, do you believe that inmates should be granted ETAs at all? I'm just trying to dig into your hopes around changing the criminal code, or is the concern for you around those convicted of violent crimes as Van Weesen has been?
The extreme violent crimes like he's committed, 100%. Rehabilitation can happen. I'm not turning the other way on that, but somebody that does a violent crime like that, I don't think it's just, and I don't think it should even be considered.
Outside of the
Of the 25
prison.
years, yes.
Okay, outside of the prison, though, how do you feel about rehab programs within a prison?
Well, my niece did say it best. She learned through the pandemic. She went to school. She took university through the confines of her house. Why can he not learn about religion that he wants to do inside the confines of the penitentiary?
So you don't have an ideological problem with the idea of a person who's been convicted for anything, and in this case, obviously, very personal to you, the man who's convicted of killing your sister, accessing some kind of rehabilitation or betterment programming in a jail?
In the jail. Yeah. There's no reason why they have to be outside the jail, in my opinion.
CBC read the decision from the Parole Board of Canada. They've granted him, just so people know, 3 leaves. He will be shackled with 2 armed officers, and an institutional chaplain will accompany. He will be out 1 Friday a month for the duration overall of 3.5 hours. It could be argued in this case that the risk to public safety has been addressed. I'm wondering what your response is to that, though.
I would like to hope that the risk isn't there. Clearly, he's going to have 2 guards with him. He is going to be shackled. But it's just the idea behind it. My sister doesn't have the opportunity anymore. Why would he?
What are your thoughts on whether or not behavior by any inmate while they're in jail should be factored into whether or not a temporary absence is granted?
Well, unless he has an absolute clean slate since day one, I don't think anything should ever be considered.
How do you hope that the criminal code will change around this?
He's been sentenced, the maximum that Canada allows is the life with a chance of 25 years of parole. Something like that, and the Violent Act, I don't even think that should be considered as an ETA at all when it comes to the parole board's decisions. Development and all of that can be in the confines. That or changing the code just to say that if it's at the maximum sentence, you're taking a life. We're not stealing a car, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about murder one. That to me is extremely severe. No extra consideration should be given to anybody for that.
So the idea of a escorted temporary absence for anyone who has that maximum penalty, because you outlined your thinking around someone who's committed a violent crime, but now we're looking at that maximum penalty. You've taken a life. In your view, they shouldn't even be allowed to request one.
Correct. Yeah, I don't think they should. Even in fact, I mean, it's a huge thing with the Charter of Rights and what, the inmates are allowed and have to have because of their human rights, which is probably another segment for you. But it's just something that just needs to change, even increasing it. I said 25 years before parole. Why can't that not increase to 35 or 40? That's still realistic with a human being's life.
Have you heard any response back from the federal government since you sent your letter?
I heard back from Ben Carr's office saying that he was going to make sure that the Minister of Justice office got my letter. I did not hear from the Minister of Justice office at all. I did hear from Mark Carney's office, recognizing they said they were forwarding it to them, and a bunch of other offices. Off the top of my head, I don't have it. But to the people that really count, I have not heard back from them.
In terms of how challenging it is for you to, now that these absences have been granted for Van Weesen, what is that like for you? Just knowing that this is you're here to fight so these things in the future, in your view, should not happen. But he's now been told this will happen.
Well, and that's where I get a little emotional, is because we have to relive it. So every time he's going to request something, it's really important that we're there. My mom and I fly anywhere that he will be in Canada so that we can say our piece and read our impact statements and explain on how important it is for the whole world to know that he should not be let outside of those jail. So, yeah, we have to deal with that every single day.
How's your niece doing?
She's for everything that she's gone through and what her family's gone through, she's a bright kid going to school and doing very, very well. She's doing very well, and she's always going to miss her mom. Nobody can replace that.
Before you go this morning, what do you think is most misunderstood about you sort of started here, so I wanted to make sure I followed up and asked you this. What do you think that people may not understand about what it's like to be, the family of a victim of violent crime, someone that's been killed? Like you talked about the rights of families and the rights of victims. What do you think is misunderstood about that in Canada?
Well, that we relive it. And I think just because somebody gets sentenced to something, it's not quite closure. It is in some way, but you'll never get that person back. So it's really hard, day by day.
Thank you for being here, Kirsten. Is there anything you'd like to add I haven't asked about?
No, I think you covered everything. I just really, really hope that the public and everybody understands this criminal code really, really, really needs to be reevaluated.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
On cue.
Have you ever heard of the Ultimate Fighting Championship?
Benny Safdie is stepping into new territory with his latest film, The Smashing Machine. It's his first time directing without his brother. Benny will be here to talk to you about going solo, working with a wrestling icon, and why there's more to MMA than just aggression.
Do you hate each other when you fight?
Absolutely not.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, is wrapping up a town hall tour of her province, hearing people's thoughts on how to get a better deal with Ottawa. Meanwhile, separatists and pro-Canada groups are touring the province as well. The View from Alberta coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. A stalemate at the U.S. Senate has forced a government shutdown. Congress failed to reach a deal on a Republican spending bill by the midnight deadline, and as a result, several services have now been cut off, and hundreds of thousands of federal workers are now on unpaid leave. U.S. President Donald Trump says the jobs of thousands more could be gone permanently. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. So, Willie, how is this going to affect people across the United States?
Well, in a myriad of ways. While essential services like law enforcement, hospital care, and air traffic control will continue, many of the people who work in these fields will be expected to work without pay. That's the same for the military. Active duty troops are expected to report for duty as normal, but they may eventually be forced to work without pay as well. Agencies are expected to furlough tens of thousands of people. Now, Social Security benefits and Medicaid will continue, but if employees there are furloughed, services may be delayed. Essentially, everything slows down. TSA may be operating at a reduced capacity, meaning longer lines. Border services will remain open, but most national parks are expected to close.
Okay, so with all that being said, as we're watching that, what can we expect next?
Well, there's another vote to continue funding the government expected today, but as of now, the numbers haven't changed. Yesterday, the Senate voted 55-45 in favor of the government's funding resolution, but that's still 5 votes short of the required 60 to pass it. The Democrats' proposal also failed 47-53. That would have included a funding continuation and an additional $1 trillion to healthcare spending. Now, Democrats are calling on Republicans to negotiate.
There's going to be a crescendo as through the beginning of October, the vast majority of Americans get those bills, and they're going to say, what the heck are we going to do? We need health care, but we can't afford it. So we want to sit down and negotiate, but the Republicans can't do it in their partisan way.
That was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has suggested that the shutdown may also lead to mass layoffs of government employees. Trump saying some jobs could be gone permanently.
The CBC's Willie Lowry for us in Washington. Thanks a lot for this, Willie.
My pleasure.
Back here at home, within the next month and a half, Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to announce the next round of major nation-building projects. His government is supporting the fast-tracking of 5 projects so far. None, however, are in the north. But as CBC's David Common reports, Nunavut has some options it wants Ottawa to consider.
A Canadian Air Force surveillance plane passes over the snow-capped mountain expanse of western Nunavut. Beneath the untapped terrain below lie the critical and rare earth minerals the world now craves. Getting it out of the ground and on to global customers is the challenge.
No, we've really seen the love of interest to the Arctic.
Nunavut's outgoing Premier PJ Akiagok is eager to see talk of developing land and port infrastructure. It is the investment kickstarter he believes the region with the highest employment in the country urgently needs.
We know there's incredible abundance of halibut or shrimp, that we could really build our own economies using our own resources right in our backyard, but it requires investments in infrastructure.
Some of that is about power. Nunavut's electricity comes from diesel generators. Its internet, unlike most Canadians, comes by satellite. New generating models and internet fiber would be a game changer. Akiagok wants to make sure the North isn't an afterthought as the nation turns to building to spur its own economy. David Common, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Meantime, it appears Alberta Premier Danielle Smith may have a nation-building project of her own to pitch to Ottawa, and we're expecting those details later on today. Smith is going to announce a new energy infrastructure project of some kind. For weeks now, she's been advocating for a new pipeline that would bring Alberta bitumen to British Columbia. And the Alberta Premier has been hinting a corporate proposal could be coming soon. An overwhelmed hospital in the Philippines treats patients in its driveway as the fear of possible aftershocks after yesterday's earthquake is real, and many people say they're just too scared to go back inside. At least 69 people are dead after a powerful 6.9 magnitude quake struck Tuesday night. The epicenter measured off the coast of the central Cebu province. As the search for survivors continues, so do efforts to restore power and water supplies that were badly damaged. The military has now been sent in to help. Well, the United Nations says more than 250,000 people have been displaced from Gaza City in the last month, forced to leave as the Israel military pushes ahead with its ground offensive. Soon, Israel says it will close the last remaining road out of the city, and its troops will move farther north to root out the last remaining Hamas militants. The plan for peace in Gaza still on hold as Hamas reviews the details. Here's more from Sasha Petrusek.
After almost 2 years of war, the promise of peace is dangling over Gaza. But among the displaced Palestinians in Deir al-Balah, there's doubt. Jamil al-Aidi doesn't think the deal would give them control over their lives.
Palestinian people need to end the occupation in all land. We need to live like other people in the world. We need to live in peace and justice.
UNICEF's James Elder was in Gaza yesterday at a hospital treating injuries from Israel's ongoing ground assault in Gaza City.
I met 4 children who'd all been shot. I then saw a boy who had been shot lying on the floor, bleeding out. Every single corridor was packed with people.
There are many vague details in U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan. Will Israel's military control end once the war does? Will the proposed international administration bring power to Palestinians or just a new colonial government? Could there ever be a Palestinian state? But the big question is, will Hamas accept this deal? It said no to similar offers already. Trump says now it's take it or leave it.
Is there room to negotiate with Hamas, or is this a take it or leave it deal?
You know, with Hamas, we want very simple. We want the hostages back immediately, and we want some good behavior.
Arab leaders are reportedly putting great pressure on Hamas to take this offer, expecting an answer as early as today. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Сьомий день і раніше, до речі, не було такого.
Ukraine's president says the situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, that is critical. Volodymyr Zelensky says the plant has become a threat to absolutely everyone after being disconnected from the power grid for 7 days. He blames ongoing Russian strikes for stopping repair efforts. One of the plant's diesel generators has already failed, and it needs power to ensure the fuel in the reactors stays cool. This is the longest power outage at the plant since Russia seized it during the first weeks of its full-scale invasion in 2022. A Quebec man is set to appear in court today on a murder charge in connection with a cold case. It was August 2011 when the body of college student Valérie Leblanc was found behind her campus in Western Quebec. As Nicole Williams tells us, investigators say new techniques help them track down a suspect. And a warning, some listeners may find details of the case disturbing.
It is with great emotion that we announce this news today, says Gatineau Police Service Director Simon Fournier. An arrest in connection to the death of 18-year-old Valérie Leblanc. Leblanc was a student who had gone missing after her first day of school in Hull, Quebec, back in 2011. Her body found days later in the woods behind the school, badly beaten and burned.
She was in bad shape. I never saw someone in that shape.
That's Dominic Arsenault after he and a group of students discovered Leblanc's body in the woods, her death devastating her family and community. A coroner's report found Leblanc died from blunt force trauma to the head. Police have now arrested 51-year-old Stéphane Rivard of Gatineau. He faces 1 count of first-degree murder. Police are not sharing any more details about the suspect or any possible connection he may have to Leblanc. Mathieu Guilbeault is chief inspector.
This is still an ongoing investigation, and that kind of information will stay close to the investigator in this file.
Rivard remains in custody and is scheduled to appear in court today. Police say they hope this brings Leblanc's family peace of mind. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. This is Information Radio. We are live on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Wednesday morning, October 1st, can be nice today. We might even get a little bit of rain. Right now, it's already 19 degrees out there. Looking through our CBC studio windows downtown, it's actually partly cloudy, but lots of people biking today. Still people wearing shorts, even though it's October, so lovely weather. To a serious story, though, this half hour on CBC. Manitoba's foster care system has been under a magnifying glass after 4 children were removed from their foster home, one with life-altering injuries. We're going to talk to a young woman who considers herself a survivor, she says, of Manitoba's foster care system, with her reaction to this story and where we go from here. Lessons we should have learned years ago in this province. Stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She has developing news and headlines this morning live from our news center. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, the sister of a woman who was murdered in 2011 says she was shocked to learn the killer will get escorted absences from prison. Skylar Van Wiesen was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Gina Swanson. He's serving a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. This summer, the Parole Board of Canada granted him 3 brief escorted absences from prison. Gina's sister, Kirsten Swanson, doesn't think that should be allowed. We're going to hear more from her coming up. And summer break is over for Manitoba MLAs as the legislature resumes sitting. And we are going to tell you what's up first when it comes to business at the Ledge. That's coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of Kirsten Swanson, I just want to mention Heather was talking about that story. We did have a full feature interview with her just before 8 o'clock. And I should mention that we will have a follow-up on this story tomorrow on the program as well. We're going to talk to the John Howard Society. They advocate for people in the justice system. We're going to talk to them about escorted temporary absences and some of the concerns that were raised through the story of Gina Swanson. So stay tuned. Kirsten Swanson talking about her sister Gina. So stay tuned. We'll have that follow for you tomorrow on the program. Right now, let's turn our attention to more detail on that weather forecast I was mentioning. Abby.
It's warm and humid across board, Marcy. Lots of sunshine in the forecast, a few pop-ups of showers here and there. We might notice some thunderstorms in parts of the south and even tracking it all the way up north. Winnipeg right now mostly cloudy, still 19 degrees. Sunshine and clouds will mix through the day, a slim chance of showers in the forecast, and again into the afternoon period, plus a risk of thunderstorms. Some southerly winds will turn breezy by the midday period. It will feel humid. We get to a warm high of 27 degrees, and then later tonight we'll see some clear skies. Now across the south from Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, also mild stats with temperatures in the mid-teens. We're talking about 16 to 18 degrees this morning. We're expecting a mix of sun and clouds also in most of those regions. In the northern parts of the province, the part of Flin Thompson, Churchill, clear at this time. Some partly cloudy conditions we're spotting. Temperatures will warm up close to 25 degrees in the northern part of the province this morning. Overall, it's going to be a warm and breezy day across the province with lots of sunshine leading way to a few scattered showers and some thunderstorms popping up here and there. For Winnipeg right now, 19, partly cloudy outside. And talk for traffic, you just have to look out for ongoing lane closures, lane reductions at the regular spots in the city where you encounter them. But you see anything before we end the show, you can let us know. 788-3093.
8:15 is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, today we are talking about minimum wage in this province. It is October 1st. It's a new month. But as you've been hearing in the news, it is also a new minimum wage in this province. There's other provinces as well that will see their minimum wages increase. Our minimum wage goes, as you might have heard in the news, from $15.80 an hour to $16 an hour. So that's where we are at this morning with minimum wage. We've asked you to call our listener line if you're an employer or a worker on minimum wage, 788-3205. What does that mean to you? How will that impact your life? We've also been taking comments on Facebook. Now, we had some critical comments around this early in the program. We shared some comments like Sky Scarlett, who said she would like to see someone from the government live on that. She writes, she says, I'm sure it would change overnight. So people talking about this not being high enough. We also have Vic Mikolaenko writing in now. He wrote to us to CBC saying, I would understand if there was one lower minimum wage for teenagers and another profoundly higher one to enable all adults to earn a living wage. So he's looking for some type of a step system. We also have people reflecting on their own experiences. So Judy Herskovich wrote in many decades ago when she was 15, she started a summer job because she was under 16. She was not paid minimum wage, and she's wondering whether or not that ruling is still in effect. And Britt Patrick weighing in today saying, I think employees deserve a living wage. They work just as hard as I do. Why should they not? So she's wrote in that her employees already make more than minimum. And so that even if it's a classically minimum wage job, she says. Now, Britt, you got to follow up and let us know where you work. So we'd love to know where you're making that decision as we look at how this impacts, as I said, employers and workers. And then finally, Sonia Tarek weighing in here as well. There's a couple more here, but Sonia Tarek's comment, that's like an extra $1 or so per shift. Honestly, what good does that do? So what good does it do? Or not. You can weigh in with us about minimum wage by writing on my Facebook page, Marcy Marcusa page. It acts as a show page during the show. You can also call us at 788-3205. Well, up next on the program, a former foster child says she is devastated, but she also says she's not surprised. When she heard the story about two foster children who were taken to hospital earlier this month, one with serious injuries. On September 19th, police removed 4 children from a home in North Winnipeg before arresting 2 foster parents. One child was suffering from life-altering injuries, while another showed signs of assault. The 2 children were found in stable condition. Police say the foster parents, aged 25 and 26, are now facing criminal charges, including aggravated assault and failure to provide the necessities of life. Sherry Gott is Manitoba's advocate for children and youth. Here's how she responded to the news.
It's devastating when a child is injured in the system, and I think that, it reminds me of the Phoenix Sinclair situation, when the agency does not go in and check to see if the children are being well cared for.
The Grand Chief of the Island Lake area, Alex McDougall, confirmed to CBC the critically injured girl was one of the four First Nations surrounding Island Lake that his government represents. He said he believes the girl was being cared for through a kinship care agreement. That's an agreement between a child welfare agency, the child's parent or guardian, and a kinship caregiver that allows the child to live with the caregiver who has a significant relationship to the family. And by the numbers, there are an estimated 12,000 children in the child welfare system in our province. And according to the First Nations Family Advocate, who we just heard from there, about 90% of children in care are Indigenous. Today, we turn our attention to hear from someone who describes herself as a, quote, survivor of Manitoba's foster care system. Her name is Selena Starling. She was a foster kid for 14 years before she aged out. She's now the CEO and president of Community of Big Hearts. That's an organization that supports Indigenous kids in foster care. And she is with us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. How are you?
I'm well. Selena, tell me why you use the word survivor. I'm just curious when you say you're a survivor of the foster care system.
100%. Many people don't use that word, and I obviously use it deliberately. I find that many people don't see it as a system you survive versus a system that you live through. But I find there's so many validation towards any Indigenous peoples, any peoples that have been harmed through the system. I want this to be immediately validating for anyone else that's hearing my story. It truly is a system you survive. I survived it. My siblings survived it. Everybody I know who has been through the foster care has survived it. I do it not for myself, but for the people that hear me use it.
How did you feel when you first heard about this case then?
It was truly devastating. I know that this isn't surprising. But when I heard about the young people that were impacted by this, especially the young girl who was found most hurt, I know that it wasn't something that I should have been surprised by, but it's something that obviously took Manitoba by a whirlwind.
In terms of your own experience, Selena, how was your relationship with your foster parents? I'm curious, and what was your overall experience like?
Most definitely. So I had quite a unique experience within the foster care system, and I get to say I'm very privileged for my experiences within it. For the first week, I lived with an emergency placement where that was not great in any manner. But for the next, 14 years, I had spent it with my aunt and her partner, who were my foster parents for the majority of the time I was in care, but I was constantly taken out of their care and placed into hotels and threatened to be taken out of the home by the foster care system for quite small, tedious things. And so it never felt like I was there in their care permanently in the foster care system because I was constantly taken out.
When you say small, tedious things, I'm just curious what you're meaning.
Most definitely. I remember the first time when I was taken out of their care, it was because it was due to paperwork. They had submitted their files one day late, and I was taken and I was placed in the hotel for a week until they sorted out that situation. And so I had the brunt end of the stick where I was taken away because of a paperwork mishap.
How old were you?
I remember I was in 3rd or 4th grade.
You were little.
I was little, yes.
Yeah.
And I was taken away from my aunt because of paperwork.
How often did a social worker manage to check on you while you were in foster care, and what kind of conversations would you have with them?
Rarely ever. I think because my entire life I've always been really good at speaking. People thought that I would speak about what happened, how I felt, different situations that happened to foster kids. People assumed that because I'm a good speaker, I would speak out about it. That is the furthest from the truth. I never had a social worker that stayed longer than 6 months. The overturn of social workers in the foster care system is absolutely atrocious. And so I never had the opportunity to create trust, to create bond, to have the opportunity if things were to happen to me, I would have never reached out to anyone within the foster care system because nobody ever took the time to create that trust, to know who I am, to share the stories with me. And so I never had a social worker stay with me for longer than 6 months. And that's what kept me from speaking to them.
What would you have said to them, for example? Like, would that have been a moment if you had that trust relationship where you could have imagined saying, you know what, I don't want to go to a hotel, or what might you have shared that would have changed the way you felt about the system and the relationship?
There were so many things that I got lack of care with, especially when I was put into the foster care system. I share often with my story about how I witnessed a sex trade, addiction, alcoholism before my time in care. And during my time in care, I saw my older sister do the same exact things. And I've never had the resources to understand why my mom and my sister would have partaken in these activities. And I wish I had someone to talk to when I was younger. I wish I had the ability to say, why is this happening? And yet I was given no opportunity and no resources to be able to speak about these things freely.
So you had siblings that had different experiences as well. You were separated from most of your siblings, I understand, right?
Later on in my time in foster care, we were placed together with my aunt, but my aunt really had to advocate for us. And so for the majority of the time, my sister had different experiences than I did within foster homes and group homes, where I had definitely a more privileged experience getting to be with my aunt the majority.
Um, you work with kids now that are currently in the foster system. Can you reflect on anything that's changed since you were a kid in care that's critical? And if you can't, what should change?
I definitely don't have any recent stories of anything changing within the foster care system. One thing I wish that we did have was the less overturn of social workers so that young people had the opportunity or given the opportunity to feel trust with somebody. That is one of the main points of the foster care system, is by finding someone to trust and to be able to instill our thoughts in and to share about all of the incredibly devastating things that have led to us being in the foster care system. We need things to change so that we, as young people that are being impacted by incredibly awful situations before and during the foster care system, we need people to rely on. We need adults to be there for us, and yet we were never provided that opportunity. And if I could change one thing within the foster care system, it would be by helping young people be able to trust social workers and trust people within the foster care system.
Um, it's been almost a decade, you know this, since the Phoenix Sinclair Inquiry Report was released. There were 62 recommendations to try to change the child welfare system. What's it like for you to see this system today, given that 10 years ago, we had all these thoughts about how to improve it?
I think when we see another young girl be absolutely, I guess, crushed by the system, and I say crushed because the system failed her, and they failed her siblings and all the young people who hear about her story. And so right now, with the recommendations that we previously had, and with the case of Phoenix Sinclair, I find that we really missed the ball on this one. And with so many other young Indigenous and non-Indigenous children within the foster care system here in Manitoba, it's utterly devastating.
I wonder, for you, Selena, how did you navigate being on your own for the first time after you aged out of care?
It most definitely was so scary. For me, getting to deal with money, having to be on my own, I had no idea. It was honestly one of the most terrifying things I've ever been put into. With the social workers, because I was put on AYA, a program for children aging out of care. And so I did have financial assistance, but for me, I never had money. I didn't know how to deal with it. And so that was one of the first obstacles for me.
I guess just last, I know we heard from someone who's with the Foster Care Parents Network here, and they said from their perspective, the story is devastating, but they also are hoping that, obviously not everybody will be seen in this light, like for foster parents. But she also said that other provinces do a better job at training the foster parents to care for kids. You've been talking about lack of social workers and the trust piece. What are your thoughts on the need for improving the training for foster parents, or the choices for who actually gets to foster kids?
I love that question. Since foster care is provincially run, I think Manitoba has a really unique opportunity now to look inward and exactly how we do training situations and how we recruit, how we find foster parents, and how they obtain children. And so this is a really great moment for Manitoba to look inward to change things. This isn't a moment about blaming the system. This isn't a moment about blaming the people, blaming the institution's foster care system. Right now, it's a moment for us to look inward and to create real tangible change so that this doesn't happen again. We need to do that so that we don't have any other young children get hurt.
Thank you, Selena. Thank you for being open with us, and thank you for your time on CBC.
Thank you, Marcy.
Selena Starling is a foster care, in her words, survivor of the system. She's also CEO and president of Community of Big Hearts, an organization dedicated to creating a deep understanding of truth and reconciliation and the realities of foster care for Indigenous youth. Right now it is 8:28. Quick traffic note. Collision on the Trans-Canada Highway eastbound, westbound toward Headingley. Traffic starting to build up, but it is now was building, but now it seems things are being cleared. In that same area, there's a stalled semi eastbound, so traffic's backing and building on Dawson. If you need to reach us, 788-3093. Marjorie Dowhouse here now to tell us what's on the noon call-in. Hi.
Hi, Marcy. Well, you might have heard, but WestJet is looking to charge passengers for reclining seats. Yes, a lot of us love to put our seat back. Most flights right now, you can recline your seat, but WestJet is saying that they are kind of retrofitting some of their planes here so that there is a section where the seats recline, the sections that don't, where the seats don't recline. So you could be paying a little bit more for your seat to recline on your next flight. So we're asking you, would you pay extra for those luxuries? What do you think of WestJet's decision? Could you just fly with just the basics? Give us a call after 12:30 and share your thoughts with us on Radio Noon.
Thanks, Marjorie.
You're welcome.
See my face squinting. I flew yesterday and I just happened to be in a seat on a plane. I just happened to be on one that didn't recline.
Yeah.
So the whole flight I was like sitting up and I was like almost falling into my lap, like, yeah. So I had that feeling in my head when you were saying that.
Fresh in your mind.
12:30 to 1. Call in. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It is 19 in Winnipeg, and we are starting the month of October with some hot temperatures. 27 and windy in Winnipeg today. Mix of sun and clouds, slight chance of a shower or a thunderstorm. A family wants changes to the criminal code after learning a man convicted of murder has been granted escorted temporary absences from prison. Skylar Van Wiesen was convicted of first-degree murder in the 2011 death of Gina Swanson. He's serving a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. This summer, the Parole Board of Canada granted him 3 brief escorted absences from prison. Kirsten Swanson is Gina's sister.
Somebody that is committed a murder one so violently, I don't understand how any parole board could see that there's any type of rehabilitation that could be done. We have to live with the consequences. Why should he not?
The parole board says Van Wiesen has made progress through in-custody rehabilitative programming. He will be shackled with 2 armed guards accompanying him to Muslim religious services over the next year. Thousands of Manitobans walked through downtown Winnipeg yesterday on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. They gathered at the Forks and walked to a powwow at RBC Convention Centre. In the crowd, Kyla Fontaine. She is studying at the University of Winnipeg to become an Indigenous teacher.
To be here for our ancestors, to walk for the residential school survivors, to walk with some of the survivors, and just to be here on their behalf, and walking for our family. That's what's most important, to be out here and show support, right?
Inside the convention center, hundreds at a powwow. Melissa Weens took her 8-year-old son, who was dressed in his full regalia.
When I was younger, there was nothing like this for us to kind of enjoy our culture and to see everybody else enjoy our culture, right? Like, it was kind of secluded and we weren't all accepted back then. It wasn't a big thing, which I think is great to bring my kids.
And Weens hopes people come away from yesterday's events with more acceptance and more understanding. The campaign manager for the Manitoba PC's 2023 election effort was named in an early memo about a rail port project that received an $18 million provincial grant right before the campaign. A provincial briefing note obtained by CBC News states Marnie Larkin was scheduled to meet in 2022 with PC Cabinet Minister Cliff Cullen about a rail port in the Arm of Richot. Days before the 2023 election campaign started, that project received an $18 million provincial grant. In a statement, Larkin initially said she was not involved in the rail port project. She later said she was not paid for any work on it. PC leader Abhi Khan would not say what he thought of the PC campaign manager being attached to a project that received a grant from his former government.
This is a project that is going to create jobs in Manitoba, is going to grow our economy, and it's going to open up Manitoba to the rest of the world.
NDP Finance Minister Adrian Sala, who ordered a review of the grant in July, says he now has more concerns. Well, summer break is over for Manitoba MLAs as the legislature resumes sitting. The fall session will see politicians vote on recommended fines for former Premier Heather Stephenson and 2 former cabinet ministers who violated the province's conflict of interest law. The Ethics Commissioner found they had tried to push through approval of a silica sand mining project after the Tories lost the 2023 election, but before the new NDP government could be sworn in. Some Manitobans are getting a bit of a boost in their pay today. Minimum wage in this province goes up to $16 an hour. It had been $15.80. And Manitoba's not alone in boosting the minimum pay. Ontario, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and PEI all are increasing their minimum wages. As of today, BC has the highest minimum at $17.85 an hour. The lowest, Alberta, $15 an hour. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks for the morning, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Heather Wells, as well as Joni Nicolo, who was helping us out this morning, too, in our news department, and Megan Getterson out there, and to our live team, Darren Marash, as well as Brad Lillies and Abby Adiyemi and Corey Funk. Thanks to everyone there. And lots of people working on the program today. So our senior producer, Leif Larson, for his work on the program. Thank you, Leif. Also, big thanks to some of our other associate producers in unit. Shanley Vidal is our community reporter. Also, Jim Agapito is one of our reporters in unit, and associate producer Jenna Bedosso. So thanks, everyone, for your work on today's program. Let's finally round things out on this October 1st with Abby, who is here with the last look at our weather.
Yes, Marcy. Before talking weather, I just need to give people a heads up about that collision on the Trans-Canada Highway between the eastbound and westbound lane towards Henley. Traffic is still building up because the emergency services people are still out there clearing the debris of the collision on the road. So you might expect some delays on that Trans-Canada Highway. And also that stalled semi is still present on the road there. So take it easy. Eastbound. For weather today, most of the regions warming up close to 25, 26, 27. We'll see 30 degrees in Brandon today. Expect some showers and maybe thunderstorms in the mix. But it's going to be another beautiful day. It feels like summer is just trying to hold on, saying you can't get into fall yet.
Right? So are the leaves, right? The trees are hanging on to their leaves.
The trees are still hanging on. I thought they should be all down now, but I'm still spotting some greens.
Yeah, well, give us a day of cold weather. We know what happens. They go really fast. So
true.
Enjoy it while they're there. Go for a walk today or whatever you're going to do outside. Thank you, Abby. And thank you for listening to another edition of Information Radio here on CBC. Nice to spend the morning with you. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Take care, be well. The Current's coming up next right here on 89.3 FM. Stay tuned. Talk to you tomorrow.